The Zobe disease, also called the immortality disease, is a mysterious sickness, and one of the 5 threats that humanity met in the Dark Continent. It can be contracted southeast of the known world. Approximately 50 years before the current events of the series, the Kukan-Yu Kingdom embarked on an expedition to the Dark Continent, searching for the alchemical plant Metalion, which we'll be discussing later. Guided by Beyond Netero, the party of hunters and expedition members were successful in obtaining it. However, they became lost on the way back, and took a wrong turn, leading to some of its members contracting the Zobe disease. Of the entire expedition team, hunters included, only Beyond and 5 others survived, along with a hunter infected by the disease. And worst of all, the plant they obtained withered and died. Not much is known about the Zobe disease. The current chairman of the Hunter Association, Cheadle Yorkshire, proclaimed that its danger rank is B+, which is even higher than the Chimera ants were, sitting at rank B. The sickness seems to have a high fatality rate, seeing as how out of all the members of the expedition who contracted it, only 1 managed to survive. The only known survivor, also a hunter, obtained the remarkable ability to live entirely self-sufficient and without sustenance for many years, essentially becoming immortal. However, self-sufficiency can only be achieved through feeding on one's own flesh, while the disease greatly accelerates the regeneration of tissues. This leads to an endless cycle of self-consumption. As seen by the only living infected human, this process breaks the mind of the person, to the point that they simply become a mindless zombie. It is also possible that, among other symptoms, it causes their skin to turn dark in color. It is still unknown how this disease is contracted, and there is no known cure. Brionne, known as the Botanical Weapon, is a mysterious being and, like Zobe, is one of the 5 threats. It's located in a labyrinth city, about 400 kilometers from the edge of a forest north of Lake Mobius. Brionne appears as a large sphere on top of a human body where the head should be, making it kind of look like that guy Let Me Solo Her from Elden Ring. However, the stats of the 5 threats confirms that Brionne is a species or taxonomic group, rather than a single entity. This is further proven when we get a glimpse of some of the victims of the various threats. One victim can be seen missing a head, with their insides hanging out of their abdomen. When the United States of Saherta sent their elite forces on an expedition to the Dark Continent, they went through the north of Lake Mobius, and ended up in a sea of trees. After traveling through this terrain for 400 kilometers, they found the ruins of an ancient city, with a mysterious labyrinth. It was there that they found a miracle herb that can cure almost any illness. Unfortunately for them, this is also where they met Brionne, the guardian of the ruins, who completely decimated them, leaving only 2 survivors. The fact that Brionne is located in an ancient city makes it possible that this is a sign that humans once lived in this area, and were taken out by the threat long ago. Not much is known about Brionne's abilities, but Cheadle Yorkshire proclaimed that it's a danger rank of B+, which, like Zobe, is higher than that of the Chimera ants. Hellbell, the twin-tailed snake, is a mysterious snake-like being that is one of the 5 threats. It lives in the swamplands of the Dark Continent, situated south of Lake Mobius. Hellbell is a snake-like creature with 2 tails. Its distinguishing feature is a large, black lump resembling a bell, from which it gets its name. The skin of its neck up to the black lump from which the tail sprout looks twisted in texture. When the Federation of Ochima did an expedition to the Dark Continent, searching for nitro rice, a type of food that increases longevity, the expedition group went through the south of Lake Mobius, and ended up in a wild swampland. There, 99% of them fell prey to Hellbell, leaving only 11 people surviving the attack. Hellbell is said to infect its prey with homicidal desire. According to Jing Freaks, the threat level of Hellbell is B+. However, the current chairman of the Hunter Association, Cheadle Yorkshire, proclaimed that its danger rank has been raised from B+ to A, higher than the Chimera ants and the other 2 threats we've covered so far. It's likely that when the Federation of Ochima came into its territory, Hellbell infected one or several of the 1,100 plus people, and the infected party went on to take out the other travelers in a murderous rage. It's not clear how Hellbell infects its targets, but it's possible that it could either be through a bite, or by creating a certain sound frequency like a rattlesnake. It is currently unknown if Hellbell is a single creature or a species. I, a gaseous life form, is a small creature shrouded in darkness, and is one of the 5 threats. It lives south-southwest of Lake Mobius, but some of its victims have been also found in the known world. Little is known about I's appearance, but it seems to be a gaseous life form with limb-like appendages extending from its main body. Its name seems to derive from the sound it makes when it speaks. Some time ago, the Mimbo Republic enlisted the help of the Hunter Association and sent an expedition team to the Dark Continent in search of the Trinity Elixir, and at some point, they encountered I. After a still unknown dispute or struggle ensued, only 3 survivors returned. Even worse, the few survivors had gone completely insane. While it's said to have been locked up after being brought back from the Dark Continent, there have been victims of I found within the known world. Not much is stated about Ai's abilities, but according to the Hunter Association's Dangerous Creatures evaluation list, Ai merits a threat level of A, on par with Hellbell. The deaths caused by Ai in the known world may be the work of Nanika through Alakazoldyck, as she was revealed to have originated in the Dark Continent, and she shares many similarities with Ai. This means that a potential ability that Ai has is the power to grant any wish, much like Nanika can do. Nanika's victims are either squashed or wrung to death if her requests are refused. Some of the ascertained victims of the 5 threats were killed in the exact same way. Nanika's possession of Aluka, her wish to please others, and her devotion to Killua could be related to Ai's description as the codependence of desire. Pap, known as the human-keeping beast, is a mysterious creature that feeds on humans and keeps them as pets, and is the last of the 5 threats we'll be discussing. It lives in a Dark Continent mountain range, along the northeast shore of Lake Mobius, but some of its victims have also been found in the known world, suggesting this threat is loose somewhere in the human realm. Pap's true appearance is still unknown, but it seems to be able to sprout feelers, which it inserts in the skulls of its human victims. When the Bezrose Union sent 1,000 people on an expedition to the Dark Continent, they entered through the north of Lake Mobius, and secured a route inside the rugged mountain range. There they found a miracle mineral called Unmanned Rock. However, that zone was also the territory of Pap. Of the 1,000 people, only 7 of them managed to make it out alive. Some of its victims that were found in the known world are also secretly stored in the basement of the International Permit Agency. According to the Hunter Association's Dangerous Creatures evaluation list, Pap merits a danger rank of A. Its victims are shrunk to the size of dolls, and have a flesh-like tube connected to the top of their heads. The creature's full title reads, a trade-off between life and pleasure, which relates to its twisted ability of feeding on humans and keeping them as pets, while putting the victim in a state of euphoric bliss, essentially making them enjoy the fact that they are slowly being killed. Since multiple sets of eyes were shown during its description in chapter 341 of the manga, Pap might be a species rather than a single creature. The Pap's ability to shrink its victims is likely based on the tradition of creating shrunken heads, which has religious significance to some indigenous tribes. It is believed that shrinking the head of one's enemy can harness their spirit and compel them to serve their shrinker. Chimera ants are extremely dangerous insects, designated Quarantine Level 1, also known as gourmet ants. Due to carefully selecting their food, they have voracious appetites, and can consume several times their own weight in a single day. It is not uncommon for chimera ants to devour their preferred fodder species to extinction. In general, not even chimera ant queens become bigger than 10 centimeters, but gigantic chimera ant queens, over 2 meters tall, can be found in the Dark Continent. The Hunter Association classified the colony led by Meruem as a B-level threat. Chimera ant queens possess an entirely unique method of reproduction, known as phagogenesis, a term meaning reproduction through consumption. By eating other creatures, a chimera ant queen can impart the characteristics of ingested creatures onto the next generation of chimera ants it gives birth to. For example, if a queen ate a bird, the offspring might be born with wings. Furthermore, if the queen devours multiple different species in a single sitting, then the offspring will have the genes and characteristics of those multiple species. If the queen devoured a bird, turtle, and a goat, the offspring might have a combination of wings, a turtle shell, and a goat head. However, regardless of what traits they possess, chimera ants are still ultimately insects. The queen can produce up to 5 eggs with one meal. Chimera ants have been known to feed until the fodder species is driven to extinction in its ecosystem to take full advantage of the genes of a particular species. Humans in particular are known to be extremely nutritious fodder for chimera ant queens, with Zazan speculating that humans who can use Nen have the nutritional value of 1,000 ordinary humans. Due to this unique method of reproduction, each generation of chimera ants is profoundly different from the one that came before it, and even individual ants from the same generation exhibit profound genetic differences, which are expressed through their unique appearance. After the chimera ant invasion of NGL, most of the remaining hybrid ants were given classification as magical beasts, giving them permission to inhabit the human realm. This excludes an army of 5,000 ant hybrids that were created using one of Shiapuf's abilities, in which humans are put into a cocoon and reborn as ants with Nen abilities. These ants were recovered on Pariston Hill's order soon after the conflict. What will become of these ants is yet to be seen. Metallion is one of the 5 great known treasures of the Dark Continent. Metallion is known as the alchemical plant for its ability to change the properties of precious metals. In theory, Metallion has the ability to change the properties of any base metal into valuable ones, like gold or silver. The power of such a plant could turn a third world country into the richest in the world overnight. This is why at some point in the past, the Kukan-Yu Kingdom sent an expedition team to recover the miracle plant. Unlike any other recorded voyage to the Dark Continent, the team managed to actually locate and recover what they were looking for. Unfortunately, the team led by Beyond Netero somehow got lost on the way back and wandered into an area where most of the team caught the Zobe disease, leaving only 6 survivors including Netero and an infected hunter being held in captivity by the Hunter Association. Some even speculate that Beyond Netero sabotaged the returning mission on purpose, arguing that there was no way an elite hunter like him could even get lost in the first place if he had already managed to get them to their destination in the first place. The reason behind this treason is unknown, and this is all of course merely speculation. The herb for all illness is yet another miracle plant from the Dark Continent, and one of its 5 discovered treasures. It's believed to have unique medical properties that can cure over 10,000 known illnesses. It's a plant that not only could save countless lives, but from an economic standpoint, could bring unimaginable wealth to any nation that's able to obtain it. With this in mind, the United States of Saherta sent their elite forces on an expedition to the Dark Continent in search of it. After traveling 400 kilometers through a sea of trees, they found the ruins of a mysterious labyrinth city. It was there that they discovered the herb, but also unfortunately met Brionne, the guardian of the ruins. Using its unknown abilities, it easily killed the entire elite squad, aside from 2 survivors that returned with little sanity left. It's also worth noting that it's been implied that the Herb of All Illness is a target for the current expedition to the Dark Continent. This is because after boarding the ship, we see an official from the International Permit Agency named Steiner brushing up on the real destination of the Dark Continent expedition, the Labyrinth City. This of course being the very city where the plant and Brionne were encountered. Nitro rice is a grain found in the swamplands of the Dark Continent and is one of its 5 known treasures. It's known as the ultimate secret to longevity, said to be able to extend one's lifespan far past that of a regular human. For obvious reasons, it's a grain that could single-handedly revolutionize humanity, leading it to become the target of the Federation of Ochima, which once sent an expedition team that landed in the swamps of Lake Mobius, where the grain is located. However, this is also where they encountered Hellbell and were almost entirely wiped out. What's interesting about this particular Dark Continent treasure is that it's been theorized to be the reason Isaac Netero was able to live so long and still be in excellent physical shape up until his death. No confirmed age has been attributed to Netero, but it's possible that he was even centuries old before his death. This claim is further backed up by the fact that Netero had once traveled to the Dark Continent with Zig Zoldyck and Lyn Orderve, both of which are still alive. Nitro rice is also said to be responsible for the 300-year-long survival of Don Freaks, who we'll be discussing a little bit later. Although this is merely speculation by Jing Freaks, he argues that Don is still traveling along the coast of the Dark Continent. Again though, neither of these theories have been confirmed in the series. The Trinity Elixir is located on the southern shores of Lake Mobius and is one of the 5 treasures known to exist in the Dark Continent. Little is known about its properties, but it's said to be the mother solution of all sorts of liquids. In theory, this could mean that the Trinity Elixir can be used to create liquids like fresh water and essential fuels, both of which are precious resources for any nation. This is why the Mimbo Republic sent a team of elite Hunter Association members to retrieve it, in hopes of making them a dominant superpower in the world. However, the south shores of Lake Mobius is also where the gaseous creature Eye resides, leading to a still unknown dispute that led to the deaths of nearly every person there, save for 3 survivors that returned without any shred of sanity. Unmanned rock is found in the mountain ranges of the northeastern shore of Lake Mobius, and is the last of the 5 known treasures found on the Dark Continent that we'll be discussing today. It's known as the Inexhaustible Stone, and a mineral ore said to have truly revolutionary properties. This rare mineral is said to generate electricity when submerged underwater. Incredibly, a mere pebble of this rock can generate as much as 20 megawatts of power per day. To put that into perspective, the average North American home uses 1.39 megawatts of power per day. This means that a single bead of unmanned rock can power up to 10 homes for an entire day, or a single home for almost 3 weeks. This is clearly a resource that can send humanity into an unparalleled era of growth and prosperity, as the cost and availability of energy would be completely revolutionized. This is why the Bezrose Union attempted to retrieve the stone, but of the 1,000 people they sent, only 7 survived an encounter with one of the 5 threats, known as PAP, and returned empty-handed. As seen through the Dark Continent map and the various recorded expeditions, signs that humans once inhabited this land are pretty evident. Simply looking at the aforementioned Dark Continent map, we can see the ruins of man-made structures that resemble buildings sprinkled throughout the landscape. Along with these buildings, there appear to be unique and massive man-made structures, such as a large coliseum, and even a city floating in the sky. If the size of these structures are relative to the size of the known world shown in the map, they appear to be colossal in size, with the floating city alone being the size of a whole nation in the human realm. Even the large crater in the center of the map is large enough to engulf every single nation in the known world. Another interesting detail is that one of the land birds on the map bears a resemblance to the Pico, which is a large land bird that was used by the Kurta clan. This fuels the speculation that the Kurta clan are actually leftovers from the original humans that settled in the known world, in the center of Lake Mobius, in order to escape the unrelenting environment of the Dark Continent. The name Dark Continent itself is a reference to the name given to sub-Saharan Africa in the 19th century. This was due to the little knowledge people had of this land at the time, believing it to be a continent filled with dangerous creatures and unknown mystical treasures. Considering that many believe that humans originated in Africa and migrated to the rest of the world, this could be a clue that the humans in the known world of Hunter x Hunter originated in their version of the Dark Continent as well. Taking another look at the Dark Continent map, one can clearly see that a large assortment of mind-boggling monsters sit atop the food chain of this unforgiving terrain. Before even entering the Dark Continent, the waters surrounding its shores are inhabited by colossal sea creatures, each of them the size of entire nations. Once on the mainland, things don't get much better. As seen when Isaac Netero's unofficial voyage there was referenced, even creatures that could dominate the known world are prey to the incomprehensibly massive monsters that truly rule there. These include behemoth sandworms, flying beastly insects, and even a species of humanoid monsters that can be seen towering in the back half of the map. It seems that the farther one travels into the mainland of the Dark Continent, the more hellish the landscape and massive the creatures become. It is also said that Magical Beast originated from the Dark Continent as well, and is of course the original home to the Chimera ants. The New Continent is an uninhabited island located in the uncharted waters of Lake Mobius, and outside the territory colonized by mankind thus far. In the world of Hunter x Hunter, the known territory colonized by mankind is located in the center of the enormous Lake Mobius, itself being located in the center of the Dark Continent. A far ocean boundary lies in Lake Mobius between the colonized territories and the Dark Continent, and encloses a neutral zone. The neutral zone itself is separated into territorial waters, where all of humanity's normal navigation and fishing takes place, along with uncharted waters. This is where the New Continent is. This mysterious land is believed to be much safer than that of the Dark Continent, which is why the V6 passed it off as the actual Dark Continent for the public at large who sought to travel there with the Kakin Empire. The Gatekeeper is a race of magical beasts that guard the only known safe pathway to the Dark Continent. Without them, it would be impossible for humans to get past the known world's oceanic borders, since as we just covered a minute ago, they are infested with crazy sea creatures. Travelers who wish to enter the Dark Continent must be accompanied by a guide, which is summoned by the Gatekeeper through unknown means. The job of the guide is to ensure the safe return from the voyage. However, the guide is also tasked with sending the returning party back to the known world with one of the 5 threats if their mission ends in failure. This is done to deter the world from traveling there altogether. Don Freaks is the supposed author of Journey to the New World, a traveler's journal about the Dark Continent. Given his name, he's also presumably an ancestor of Jing and Gon. Over 300 years ago, Don traveled to the Dark Continent and wrote a journal consisting of 2 volumes, East and West. While the East edition is in the hands of the V6, the West edition was never found. According to Jing, there are 3 possibilities to explain this. It has yet to be found, it was never written, or Don is still currently working on writing it, which would suggest that he is still alive. This would be possible through the consumption of nitro rice, which dramatically increases one's lifespan, and the herb of all illness, which would allow Don to avoid sickness during his travels, both of which are cataloged in the Journey to the New World East edition, meaning Don is well aware of their location and benefits.
Every Dark Continent expedition explained. Beige Rosé Union. The Beige Rosé Union is a country located between European and Asian continents on some yet-to-be-named landmass. It's currently a part of the V6 Alliance and was one of the original members of the V5 until the Kakin Empire joined the party, making it the V6. Since historical artifacts tell of disasters hitting every time humans tried exploring the Dark Continent, the V5 created a hard protocol 200 years ago, called the Inviolability Treaty. that prohibited said expeditions. But this treaty hasn't stopped people. In the past few years, there have been 149 attempts to sneak off to the Dark Continent. One of those bold moves came from the Beige Rosé Union. Their trip was one of just 5 documented but unsanctioned voyages to the Dark Continent. With the aid of guides, a race of magical beasts summoned by the gatekeeper, the crew secured a route along the northeast shore of Lake Mobius to find a valuable resource called the Unmanned Rock. This special ore is like the holy grail of energy. Drop a bead of it in water and you get 20 megawatts of power for an entire day. The crew, made up of a whopping 1,000 people, actually found the rock in the northeastern mountain ranges of Lake Mobius. The momentous discovery could have been a jackpot for humanity, but the celebration didn't last long. Turns out the area is home to Pop, one of the Dark Continent's 5 threats. Pop is a parasitic beast that takes over people's nervous systems and turns them into obedient little pets. It jams a sprout-like feeler into their skull to control their brains. Its victims shrink to doll size and grow antlers. Pop acts like an unintentional guard for the Unmanned Rock, making it nearly impossible to snag without major casualties. According to the Hunter Association's Dangerous Creatures Evaluation list, Pop is ranked A for a danger which is even higher than the Chimera ants. Its description, a trade-off between life and pleasure, suggests there's something extra sinister about its powers. Sadly for the Beige Rosé Union's expedition team, Pop wiped them out with ease, with only 7 people surviving the horror. Some of Pop's victims eventually showed up in the known world and are now secretly stored in the basement of the International Permit Agency. United States of Saherda. The United States of Saherda is a country in the middle of the European continent and one of the V6 nations. If you're a fan of the series, you'll know 2 notable locations in Saherda: York New City, where all the auction chaos went down, and the Gordur Desert, the infamous battleground where Kurapika and Ubogin had their deadly showdown. In the past, Saherda decided to break the V5 strict no expedition to the Dark Continent rule and sent its special forces on an exploration. The team ventured north of Lake Mobius and stumbled into a massive sea of trees. After trekking through the dense forest for about 400 kilometers, they came across the ruins of an ancient city. Inside this mysterious place was a labyrinth, and at the center of it was the very thing they're searching for: the herb of all illnesses, a legendary plant from the Dark Continent that can supposedly cure any disease. The discovery once again sounds like a major win, but not so fast. The ancient city wasn't exactly unguarded. Bryon, a terrifying botanical weapon, protects the uninhabited city and the miracle herb as well. Bryon appears as a gigantic sphere perched where a human head should be, sitting atop a humanoid body. Not much is known about its abilities, but it's officially ranked as a B+ threat, making it even more dangerous than the Chimera ants. Surprisingly, Bryon absolutely obliterates the Saherda forces, leaving only 2 survivors to tell the story. There's a theory floating around that Bryon's creepy appearance might be because the spherical weapon attached itself to the headless corpse of one of the victims. Whatever the case, it's clear that Saherda's attempt to outsmart the Dark Continent ended in disaster. Federation of Ultima. The Federation of Ultima is a V6 nation located south of the Asian continent on an unnamed landmass. At one point, they sent an expedition team of 1,100 people to the Dark Continent. Their mission is to track down the Nitro Rice, a super special grain said to extend your life if you eat it. The team headed to the far southeastern part of Lake Mobius, aiming for the swamplands where the rice is supposedly grown. Sounds easy enough, but no. They didn't even make it to the swamps because they stumbled into the territory of Hellbell, one of the 5 threats. Hellbell is a snake-like nightmare with a horrifying ability. It infects its prey with an uncontrollable urge to kill. How? Probably through a venomous bite that messes with your mind and turns you into a homicidal maniac. When the Ultima expedition crossed into Hellbell's turf, it was game over. The creature wiped out 99% of their team, leaving just 11 people alive to tell the tale. As for Hellbell itself, it's ranked with an A-level threat, putting it right up there with the most dangerous creatures on the Dark Continent. Whether it's a single beast or an entire species, it's still a mystery. But one thing's for sure, it's not something you want to mess with. Mimbo Republic. The Mimbo Republic is a country located just south of the Republic of Padokia and is one of the V6 nations. At one point, they teamed up with the Hunter Association to send an expedition to the Dark Continent with a big goal in mind: retrieving the Trinity Elixir. This mysterious substance is the ultimate liquid capable of solving water supply issues forever. It's said to be located in the south-southeast of the Dark Continent. But as you might have guessed, things didn't go as planned. On their journey, the crew ran into Ai, one of the Dark Continent's 5 threats. Ai is a total mystery. It's described as a mist-like creature with limb-like appendages stretching out from its gaseous form. No one knows exactly how it works, except for the fact that Ai has a horrifying habit of killing humans in extremely grotesque ways, leaving its victims' bodies either squashed or wrung to death, based on the bodies of the recovered victims preserved in the basement of the International Permit Agency. That's exactly what happened to the Mimbo expedition team. Whatever went down between the crew and Ai, it didn't end well. Out of the entire team, only 3 people made it back alive, and they were completely traumatized and out of their minds. The survivors also returned empty-handed, with the mission failing big time. Ai's full description is codependence of desire, which suggests some creepy, dysfunctional dynamic in how it interacts with its victims. Supposedly, Ai was locked up after being brought back from the Dark Continent, but reports of its victims have still popped up in the known world. According to the Hunter Association's Dangerous Creatures Evaluation List, Ai has an A-level threat ranking. Kukanyu Kingdom. The 5th and final recorded voyage to the Dark Continent was pulled off by the Kukanyu Kingdom, one of the V6 nations located north of the Yorbian continent. About 50 years ago, they decided to send an expedition to find a rare alchemical plant called Metallion. With the help of some hunters led by Beyond Netero, the team made it to the southern shore of Lake Mobius and even managed to secure the plant. Things were actually looking pretty good. This mission came the closest to being a successful one, but then on the way back their luck completely ran out. For some reason they went off course, and that's when disaster struck. The crew contacted Zobe, a mysterious disease, and one of the 5 threats from the Dark Continent. Out of the entire team, including the hunters, only Beyond and 5 others survived, along with 1 hunter who was infected by Zobe. To make things even worse, the Metallion plant they'd worked so hard to get withered and died before they could even get back to the known world. Zobe is ranked as the B+ level threat, and it's no joke. The disease has an insanely high fatality rate, with only 1 infected person known to have survived. Here's the creepy part. The survivor gained a freaky ability to live completely self-sufficiently for years. No food, no water, nothing. This self-sustenance comes from literally feeding on their own flesh, which regenerates at an accelerated rate. Unsurprisingly, the disease seems to mess with its victim's sanity. On top of that, it's said to darken the skin, but no one knows exactly how it's contracted, and there's no cure yet. Isaac Netero's team. Years before the Kukanyu Kingdom's trip to the Dark Continent, a young Isaac Netero set off on his own undocumented expedition. But he wasn't alone. He was joined by Zig Zoldike and Linné O'Derb, 2 other powerful Nen users. But even with their combined strength, the Dark Continent absolutely overwhelmed them. The whole experience was a non-stop losing battle, with nature itself throwing bigger, meaner challenges at them, until they finally decided to turn back. Shaken by the insane risks and dangers of the Dark Continent, his concerns got even more personal when he found out his son, Beyond, had also tried to explore the uncharted continent. Netero took it upon himself to convince the V5 to extend the Inviolability Treaty to the Hunter Association as well, banning any hunter to venture to the Forbidden Land. In his final video message to the Zodiacs, Netero revealed that he had actually set foot in the New World twice. Despite everything, he still dreamed of seeing the Hunter Association take the lead in conquering the Dark Continent. In his eyes, they were the right ones for the job, not his son. Dawn Freaks. You might be wondering, if the Dark Continent is supposedly uncharted, how does the V5 know about its greatest resources and where to find them? Well, over 300 years ago, a guy named Dawn Freaks made the trip to the Dark Continent on his own. He explored the Mobius shoreline and recorded everything in a journal titled Journey to the New World. Dawn documented his travels in 2 volumes, an East edition and a West edition. However, only the East edition has been found, and it's now in the hands of the V6, formerly the V5. A copy of the East edition is stored in the basement of the International Permit Agency and was given to Steiner to read. The IPA director explains that the book was published centuries ago and was once dismissed as the ramblings of a lunatic. But now, thanks to testimonies from survivors of the 5 documented expeditions and evidence from the victims of the threats, the book has become legendary as a priceless source of knowledge about the Dark Continent. After the Black Whale departs, Steiner is seen aboard the ship with other IPA members, still reading the East Edition. When asked about why he's reading it again, Steiner suggests that at least read the chapter about the labyrinthine city they're heading to. That's likely the same place where the herb for all illnesses and the threat Brian are located. While the East Edition is securely with the V6, the West Edition has never been found. According to Ging, there are 3 possibilities. It hasn't been discovered yet, it was never written in the first place, or Don Freaks is still alive and working on it. The last theory doesn't sound too far-fetched, considering Don knew about the nitro rice and where to find it. Kakin Empire. The Kakin Empire's succession war, the current arc of the series, details the latest and ongoing attempt of humanity to reach the Dark Continent. Before his death, Isaac Netero banned his son Beyond from heading there. This prompted Beyond to start prepping for a future expedition by recruiting skilled people, securing funding, and plotting with Pariston Hill, who infiltrated the Hunter Association to assemble a team of temp hunters in view of the journey. Beyond also struck a deal with King Nasubi of the Kakin Empire, promising to make him a legendary ruler in exchange for funding the trip. Nasubi publicly announced an open expedition to pressure the V5 and force them to act. The V5 hired the Hunter Association to capture Beyond, but changed their approach when Kakin joined the alliance to form the V6. They decided to have the Zodiacs escort Beyond to the Dark Continent instead. Behind the scenes, the V5 secretly backed Nasubi's project to share the riches, while insisting only the Hunter Association ships would proceed to the Dark Continent, tricking the public into thinking the new continent is the real deal. Meanwhile, Nasubi announced plans to build 20 more massive ships like the Black Whale, number 1, setting the stage for his family's voyage. Nasubi had his own plans, though. The Black Whale, number 1, wasn't just a cruise ship. Nasubi planned a deadly succession battle on board it to determine which of his 14 children would inherit the throne. This deathmatch includes not only the royal princes, but also Kakin's mafia families, who are fighting their own battles to help their sponsors win and gain power. The Zodiacs, meanwhile, are juggling preparations for the Dark Continent expedition and keeping Beyond under control. At Beyond's base, Pariston's shady plans were interrupted when Jing showed up to join the team. Around this time, both Jing and Pariston had left the Zodiacs, with Leorio and Kurapika stepping in to replace them. Kurapika joined the Zodiacs for a personal reason, getting closer to Serednik, the 4th prince of Kakin, who owns a large number of scarlet eyes. As the journey approached, the Zodiacs laid out their roles, and Cheadle kicked things off with the 289th Hunter exam, this time only allowing recruits for the expedition to pass. Kurapika used this time to investigate a potential mole in the Zodiacs, and with his dowsing chain identified Sayu as a spy for Beyond. Meanwhile, Kakin's seed urn ceremony began, where each of the 14 princes gave a drop of blood to the urn. This ritual gave them guardian spirit beasts, powerful Nen constructs linked to their survival in the succession battle. The stakes were deadly. Trying to flee the contest meant certain death. To get closer to Serednik, Kurapika hired hunters like Biscuit, Basho, Hanzo, Melody, and Izunavi to work as bodyguards for various princes. While Kurapika thought he'd end up with 9th Prince Halkenberg, he was instead assigned to protect Queen Oito and her baby, 14th Prince Wobble. Reluctantly, Kurapika took the job after Oito promised to help him get to Serednik. The Black Whale 1 will spend about 3 weeks cruising through territorial waters, then stop to refuel before heading into the risky uncharted waters for another 5 weeks. After that, it'll finally reach the so-called Dark Continent. When the Black Whale 1 finally set sail, chaos erupted almost immediately. Guardian spirit beasts began manifesting, and Kurapika made an emergency broadcast to warn the hunters. He discovered that the princes themselves couldn't see these beasts, which defied typical Nen rules. King Nasubi explains the beasts' restrictions. They can't kill each other or attack directly. This created a battle of strategy, giving even less combat-savvy princes a fighting chance. Kurapika offered to teach Nen to the royal guards to level the playing field, and 10 princes sent their bodyguards for lessons. As the deathmatch progressed, princes like Momoze, Sale, and Kancho met their ends. Meanwhile, the remaining contestants analyzed their guardian spirit beasts for any edge they could find. As if the royal bloodbath wasn't enough, Kakin's 3 mafia families joined the chaos. The Haley family, led by Morena, went on a killing spree to power up their Nen abilities. And to top it off, all of the Phantom Trope boarded the ship too, hunting Kakin's greatest treasures, and Hisoka, who was hunting them in return. The Mafia War, Trope, and Hisoka added another layer of mayhem to an already volatile situation. Then came the biggest revelation. Longi, a guard of the fifth prince Tupepa, revealed that she's Beyond's daughter. About 30 years ago, Beyond orchestrated sham marriages within Kaken's military and fathered many children. These kids were Nen users from birth and were later sent to the Royal Military Academy. The plan was for his children to become royal guards for the Kaken princes. Longi's purpose, along with Beyond's other children, was to be a living weapon and a sacrificial pawn for Beyond's goals, likely meant to assassinate a certain prince. Longi believes Beyond's bigger plan is to wrap up the succession war quickly and put a prince of his choosing on the throne. Longi speculated that one of the Kaken princes is actually Beyond's child, and that's the one he wants to see crowned. With his secret child as the king, this would give him full control of Kaken's resources to fund his true obsession, conquering the Dark Continent. As of now, the voyage is on its 12th day. First Prince Benjamin has declared martial law, aiming to seize control of the ship, eliminate the other princes, and claim the throne before his time runs out. Hinting of a greater chaos the ship is descending further into before it could even reach its destination.
Enhancement is the process of using aura to boost the natural abilities of objects or one's body. Enhancers are the types who can ramp up their physical attacks and defenses to superhuman levels, making them perfect for up-close melee battles. Through the water divination test, an enhancer increases the amount of water in the glass. According to Hisoka's personality analysis, enhancers are usually pretty simple and determined. They don't lie, are super straightforward, and tend to act on their feelings. They're often focused on their goals and rely on straightforward, no-nonsense Nen abilities to get things done. Therefore, the core of most enhancers' abilities is simple, raw power. A lot of them channel their Nen into supercharging their physical abilities, letting them hit harder, defend better, or even heal faster. A skilled enhancer can even strengthen their body enough to make themselves tougher than a tank and hit with force equal to a missile. Uvogin, for example, makes his body as tough as steel and cranks up his attack power with his own aura to use the Big Bang Impact. But enhancers aren't just about brute strength. They can apply this boosting effect to weapons as well, like in the case of Nobunaga and Guido. It's also the most balanced Nen type, in the sense that it lets users focus equally on offense and defense, often without needing fancy techniques. That's why many enhancers rely on straightforward, powerful moves based on basic Nen techniques. Still, some enhancers go even further with more complex abilities, such as healing, which Kurapika used against Uvogin, or enhancing someone else's growth, like in the case with Bill's Aragorn. Gon's Jajanken Rock is the perfect example of enhancement in its simplest form, where he channels his aura into his fist so he can boost it to pack an insane punch. But in his fight against Neferpito, he does the unthinkable by enhancing his body to the point where he ages years in moments, in order to reach his peak physical form. This gives him immense strength that comes with a heavy price, as he loses all his Nen afterwards. This also could be due to the Nen restriction and not enhancement in itself. It's also worth mentioning that Nen types overlap, or at least they can. Enhancement meshes well with emission and transmutation, but not so much with other Nen types, especially specialization, with 0% compatibility. For example, Isaac Netero is one of the strongest enhancers in the series, but his ultimate move, the 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva, combines emission, manipulation, and maybe even transmutation. Netero likely uses enhancement to boost its speed and hand movements to godlike levels, which even Meruem struggled to keep up with at first. However, in most cases, an ability created using affinities outside of enhancement will always be weaker than their original affinity, and this will be the case with the 6 main categories we'll be discussing. Transmutation is the process of changing one's own aura to copy different properties, like elements, substances, or even animals. Through the water divination test, a transmuter changes the taste of the water. Personality-wise, they're known to be quirky, deceptive, and a bit unpredictable. They might quickly lose interest in things they once loved, and often hide their true nature behind a mask. Even when they don't, they tend to keep their real intentions secret. Transmuters usually come up with Nen abilities that reflect their unpredictable nature, and while enhancement focuses on straightforward power, transmutation demands creativity or some intense training to master a versatile and tricky Hatsu. Transmuters can make their aura take on traits of natural elements or man-made things, but they aren't limited to just solid objects. Take Killua, for example, who can change his aura to mimic electricity. With it, he can shock enemies up close or from a distance, by channeling his electricity through his yo-yos or shooting out lightning strikes. As a transmuter, Killua in particular has dual affinity towards enhancement, which is something we'll be talking about in a bit. And this is because transmutation is most compatible with enhancement and conjuration. In Godspeed mode, Killua also applies enhancement skills to boost his reaction time and allow him to constantly move at full speed. In the same manner which Killua's aura takes the properties of electricity, Phaeton does the same by transmuting his aura into a ball of scorching fire that mimics the properties of a miniature sun. Transmuters can also tweak their aura to give it certain traits, instead of copying a substance exactly. Hisoka's bungee gum is a great example, since, and this isn't widely known by most people, Hisoka's bungee gum has the stretchy and sticky properties of both rubber and gum, but way more durable than either. Hisoka uses this ability to set traps, deflect attacks, and create flail-like weapons, making it a nightmare to predict. Another notable transmuter is Machi, who turns her aura into strings, which she uses to stitch up body parts back together, connecting everything from nerves and even bone. Biscuit Kruger is probably the most unique transmuter in the series, as she mostly applies her transmutation skills to change her bulky appearance into a smaller one, all while concealing her true power. Her main ability, though, which involves summoning a Nen beast that heals and revitalizes people, employs both transmutation and manipulation, with the latter being the least compatible Nen type with this affinity. Emission is the process of separating aura from the body, which makes it perfect for long-range attacks and abilities that last over time. Through the water divination test, an emitter changes the color of the water. Personality-wise, they're known to be impatient, quick to anger, and not very detail-oriented. Like enhancers, they can be impulsive, but emitters tend to cool off and forget things more quickly. Emitters often use their affinity to fire off aura as projectiles or beams at high speeds for mid or long-range attacks. Normally, aura loses its strength quickly when it leaves the body, but skilled emitters can send their aura far away and keep it strong and functional for a long time. Though emission is mostly used for attacking, it has some other interesting uses as well. It can help the user propel themselves, or cast effects from other Nen types remotely. More advanced techniques include Nav's teleportation ability and Leorio's remote punch, that phases through any surface until it hits the intended target. The only downside with emission is that the more aura being sent out means the less distance it can cover before weakening, but again, for the outliers this is not necessarily the case. Meruem's Rage Blast and Photon are great examples of emission in action. He fires explosive blasts of aura from his arm, and even spreads tiny dots of his aura into the air to gather information about whatever they touch. He's so precise with the latter ability that he can even tell if someone's lying. Gon's Jajanken Paper is a more straightforward example of emission, where he simply shoots an aura projectile from his hand. Other notable emitters include Pokel with his rainbow arrows, Razor with his aura ball, Zeno with his aura blast, and Silva with his explosive orbs, though Silva also mixes in some transmutation. Emitters are most compatible with enhancement and manipulation, which helps them expand their abilities. Conjuration is a versatile Nen type that allows users to create actual physical objects from their aura. It's often confused with transmutation, because both involve molding aura into a particular form, but the key difference is that while transmutation changes aura into a certain trait by mimicking those desired properties, conjuration actually materializes aura into a real physical object. Through the water divination test, a conjurer adds impurities to the water in the glass. As for their personality, conjurers are usually pretty serious, high-strung, and cautious. They're observant and logical, always analyzing things and rarely falling for tricks, which gives them a big edge in tricky situations. The types of things conjurers can create can vary, and setting limitations on what they conjure can make their creations even stronger than the real-life version. Conjurers go through a lot of training to visualize what they want to create, but once they've mastered it, they can conjure or dispel their objects in the blink of an eye. The durability of the conjured object is usually a sign of how skilled the conjurer is, though placing conditions on the object can make it stronger. Take Kurapika's chain gel for example. This unbreakable chain is able to trap a powerhouse like Uvogin because Kurapika added the condition that it can only be used on members of the Phantom Troop, and if he breaks that rule he dies. Kite also sets a condition on his ability to rely on his crazy slots and randomly picking a numbered weapon without being able to choose which weapon to conjure. Conjurers can also create things with special abilities, like Shizuku's vacuum cleaner for example, that can suck up anything that's not alive or made of Nen, and Abingane, who can conjure a Nen beast that can exercise Nen curses. What's interesting about conjured objects is that they can stick around even if the conjurer is far away, or doesn't realize they're still there. Knuckle, for example, conjures a Nen beast called Hakuware that sticks to an opponent and racks up interest on loaned aura until they go bankrupt, forcing them into Zetsu. The indestructible mascot even sticks around after Knuckle is far away. The same also applies to Cortupi's conjured replicas, that can linger on for 24 hours, even when he's not around. Conjuration is also compatible with transmutation, and least compatible with emission and specialization. Manipulation gives the user control over both living and non-living things, including aura constructs. Through the water divination test, a manipulator simply moves the leaf floating on the water. As for their personality, manipulators are often logical and argumentative. They go at their own pace and are protective over their loved ones. However, when it comes to chasing their own goals, they don't care much about others' opinions. In combat, manipulation can be a huge advantage, because the manipulator can take control of an enemy as soon as certain conditions are met. The user's aura mixes with the target's aura, though it's not always obvious. Skilled manipulators can even force aura nodes to open on non-Nen users, but they can't take control of a target that's already being manipulated by someone else. Manipulators are great at channeling their aura into objects, often using a medium they've been connected to for years, an example being Illumi's needles. In a lot of cases, they can control things across long distances, like how Moral controls his smoke troopers, without needing a mission-type Nen. The amount of control they have usually depends on conditions they set. If the conditions are tricky or put the user at risk, they can control the target more effectively. They can use 4 main methods in controlling other people. Soliciting manipulation leaves the target's free will intact, but conditions them to follow the manipulator's lead under certain circumstances. One example would be the needle that Illumi used on Killua, which forced him to run away in fear when facing stronger enemies. Coercive manipulation gives total control over the victim's mind and body. Illumi's needle people are a prime example, which is an ability he performs by sticking needles into his target's heads so he can fully control multiple individuals, both living and dead. Shalnark's black voice also fits this category. Pseudo-coercive manipulation either takes over the victim's body or traps them in a situation where they have no choice but to follow orders, like when Momoze's guardian spirit beast controlled Sayard to kill his comrades. Diffusive induction manipulation weakly influences the emotions of a large group of people, like Prince Salah's guardian spirit beast, which manipulates others to see him favorably. While most manipulators usually focus on controlling opponents, some prefer to control objects instead, such as Kaluto, who controls Nen-imbued pieces of paper to use as a weapon or a surveillance device. Some manipulators also prefer to control animals instead, such as how Squala does with dogs and Ponzu with bees. Manipulators can lean towards emission, but their weakest affinities are transmutation and specialization. Specialization is the most unique and flexible Nen type, covering abilities that don't fit into the other 5 categories, making it pretty vague how they actually function. Because of this, specialists tend to have abilities with more steps and conditions than the other Nen types we discussed, which also lets them bypass typical Nen rules. A specialist water divination test seem to be unique to each individual, reflecting their personalities, unlike the other Nen types, with a predictable outcome. We've seen a few examples of this sprinkled throughout the series. Kurapika, for example, turned the water a different color and made the leaf spin. Neferpito's aura dried out the leaf and made it crumble, and Kakin Prince Saradnik made the water boil and release a nasty smell. Specialization is most compatible with conjuration and manipulation, and least effective when it comes to enhancement. Specialist abilities can vary greatly. Some can affect the user's own Hatsu, like Kurapika in his Emperor time, where he can use 100% proficiency in all Nen types. Others give the user access to knowledge that would otherwise be impossible to get, like Neon's fortune telling, or Pakunoda's ability to read memories of those she touches, or even Saradnik's parallel future, which lets him, see the future. Because specialist abilities are so varied, it's harder for an opponent to exploit weaknesses, even when a specialist Nen type is revealed. Unlike other Nen types, how specialists develop their abilities is kind of a mystery. Some, like Neon, get abilities based on lifelong desires, while others, like Saradnik, develop them randomly after learning about Nen. Other notable specialists include Chrollo, who can steal others' Nen abilities through his conjured book, and then there's Aluka with her wish-granting powers, although it's unclear if her abilities are even related to Nen, or just an entirely different kind of ability. In Nen, most people only have one natural affinity, but some users can be close enough to another category that they can learn their secondary affinity faster than usual. These are users that have dual affinity. This doesn't mean they have 2 main Nen types, but it does mean that they can master the second one almost as quickly as their natural affinity. They still have a primary type, and the second one won't be as strong, but they can use it more efficiently than someone with no connection to that category. In a memo released by Yoshihiro Tagashi, he categorized various characters into their Nen types, with some characters leaning towards their secondary affinity. A few of them are placed right in between 2 categories, marked by a halfway point, and labeled as an in-between Nen user. One well-known example is Killua. He's a natural transmuter, but Togashi placed him in between transmutation and enhancement. So Killua is considered a transmuter enhancer, meaning he can pick up enhancement skills just as easily as he learns transmutation. As mentioned earlier, Killua uses transmutation to alter his aura to mimic the properties of electricity, but he also uses enhancement to enhance his speed and boost his reaction time and Godspeed. Though his enhancement skills would only be 80% as strong compared to his transmutation abilities at 100%. Another example is Melody, who's labeled as an emitter manipulator. As a natural emitter, she channels her aura through music to heal listeners from fatigue and sickness. And when she really pours herself into her music, she can even manipulate the listener's emotions and create illusions of a blooming meadow, making people lose touch with reality for 3 minutes. This kind of effect obviously leans heavily into manipulation, even if it's brief. Franklin from the Phantom Troop is also an emitter, but he has a secondary affinity towards enhancement. His main ability is shooting aura bullets from his fingers, but to fire them with devastating power, he taps into enhancement to boost each bullet's speed and strength. Of course, the most notable in-between Nen user would be Kurapika. He's a natural conjurer, but when his eyes turn scarlet, he becomes a specialist. What's even more impressive is that when he's in a specialist mode, called Emperor Time, he can use all types of Nen with 100% efficiency. While his base level in other categories remain the same, his force and accuracy in any ability jumps to 100%. So while his emission level, his weakest affinity, remains at 40%, his emission ability increases to 100%, putting him on par with an actual emitter in this state. But this power comes with a heavy cost, as every second in Emperor Time shortens his lifespan by 1 hour. Postmortem Nen is a phenomena that occurs when a Nen user's abilities stick around and even get stronger after they die. This often happens if a user dies with a strong grudge, which causes their Nen to target whoever they hate and cling on to them, usually resulting in their death. This makes curse-type Nen abilities incredibly hard to remove, since there are fewer than 10 Nen exorcists in the world who can even try to break a curse left behind by a dead Nen user. But it's not just hatred that triggers Postmortem Nen. Any strong emotion can cause it. When Neferpitou died, their ability Terpsichore still controlled their decapitated body because of their deep loyalty to Meruem. Even though they didn't see Gon as a real threat anymore, their Nen kept going after their death. Some Nen users even set up their abilities so that dying is part of how their power activates, making them way stronger in the process. One of the best examples of this is Hisoka. Manga spoilers ahead, by the way. Before dying in his fight against Chrollo, he implored his Nen ability to restart his heart and lungs after he died. Sure enough, after he was killed, his postmortem Nen kicked in and revived him. While Hisoka used postmortem Nen as a last resort for survival, Prince Camilla from the Kakin Empire, on the other hand, uses this concept as the core element of her Nen ability. If she's killed, a massive cat-like Nen beast appears and absorbs the life energy of her killer. The extracted life essence is then transferred to her and brings her back to life. This means she revives every time she dies, at the cost of her killer's life, making her nearly impossible to kill. Another curious case is Misha Hao, of the Ziyu family, whose job it was to dispose of the bodies of the group's victims. Her devotion to her role was so great that even after she died, her postmortem Nen still makes her appear and clean up the bodies of anyone killed by a Ziyu member. Once she disposes of the body, she disappears again. Sometimes postmortem Nen can also execute even if it breaks the set conditions of other abilities. A good example is the Sun and Moon in Chrollo's book. It stayed there even after its original owner died. Normally, Chrollo's Skill Hunter would lose a stolen ability when the original user dies, but this particular postmortem Nen ability completely ignores these conditions. This also makes the Sun and Moon's marks impossible to dispel until they explode. Aluka Zoldyck, a member of the infamous Zoldyck family, is one of the most enigmatic characters in Hunter x Hunter. Aluka is the second youngest of Silva and Kikyo Zoldyck's children, and she possesses one of the most unique and terrifying abilities in the series. Aluka is not a Nen user in the traditional sense. Instead, she hosts a mysterious entity known as Nanika, which translates to something in Japanese. Nanika grants Aluka the power to fulfill any wish, but this ability comes with severe consequences. Aluka's ability, often referred to simply as wish granting, functions through a complex system of requests and rewards. When Nanika takes over, it makes a series of requests to the person interacting with Aluka. If the requests are fulfilled, Nanika can grant any wish, no matter how impossible it may seem. However, if someone fails to fulfill Nanika's requests, the consequences are deadly, often resulting in the death of the person who made the wish and their loved ones. The difficulty of Nanika's requests increase with the magnitude of the previous wish, and the greater the wish, the greater the potential consequences. For example, after Nanika granted a wish requiring a large amount of money, likely millions of dollars, the next person to deal with Nanika was asked for their vital organs. This, being an impossible request to fulfill, resulted in the person being squished flat, along with people close to her. Alluka's upbringing in the Zoldyck family was far from ordinary. Her unique abilities made her both feared and isolated within the family. Most of her family members, including her father Silva, referred to her as a thing rather than a person, and she was kept under strict surveillance. However, Alluka's relationship with her older brother Killua was notably different. Killua treated Alluka with loving care. And at this point it's worth noting that Alluka is a biological male, but prefers to be called a female, Killua being the only one to comply with this request. Alluka's abilities come to the forefront during the chairman election arc, where Killua seeks her help to save Gon, who is on the verge of death after his battle with Neferpitou. Killua, knowing the risk involving Alluka's power, makes careful requests to Nanika to ensure that Gon is healed without causing harm to others. It's revealed that because Alluka and Nanika love Killua, he can demand wishes instead of requesting them, essentially allowing him to make any wish without repercussions. Binault is a blacklist hunter and a wanted criminal for committing murders without any apparent reason. He's a ruthless cannibal who loves to tear apart and eat his victims. He carries around several pairs of scissors, which he uses both as weapons and to cut the hair of his targets to activate his Nen ability, Scissor Hands. By cutting his target's hair with his favorite pair of scissors and eating it, Binault can learn any physique-related information about his opponent. It's with this ability that he realized Biscuit's actual age and strength. As a kid, Binault was shy, lonely, and poor. When he found a woman's purse in a back alley and tried to return it, the woman and her boyfriend assumed that he had stolen it. They beat him up and left him barely conscious, as he sees a broken pair of scissors also lying on the floor next to him. This traumatic experience led to him becoming a serial killer. At some point, he entered Greed Island with the goal of taking down as many players as possible, but unfortunately for him, he chose the wrong target in Bisky, who turned him into a sparring machine for both Gon and Killua. He eventually realized the error of his ways and promised to turn himself into the authorities as soon as he leaves the game. Chrollo Lucifer is one of the most complex and formidable characters in Hunter x Hunter. As the leader of the Phantom Troop, also known as the Spiders, Chrollo is both feared and respected within the world of criminals and Nen users. He's calm, intelligent, and highly strategic. Chrollo's Nen ability Skill Hunter is one of the most versatile and powerful abilities in the series. Skill Hunter allows Chrollo to steal the Nen abilities of others, provided he fulfills certain conditions. Once an ability is stolen, Chrollo can use it as his own, by storing it in his bandit's secret book. The book contains pages dedicated to each stolen ability, and Chrollo must have the book open to the corresponding page to utilize the ability. Some of the notable abilities Chrollo has stolen include the Sun and Moon, an ability that allows him to place explosive marks on his targets, which detonate when the marks come into contact with each other. There's also Gallery Fake, which he got from Cortopi, which is an ability that creates perfect replicas of objects by touching them. He also had Order Stamp, a stamp that allows Chrollo to control anyone or anything it touches, as long as they meet the conditions of the ability. And there's Lovely Ghostwriter, an ability that allows the user to predict someone's future in the form of a poem. Chrollo originated from Meteor City, a junkyard city inhabited by outcasts. People who live there do not exist in any official records, and the existence of the city itself is known by very few people. One day, Chrollo, who was 11 years old at the time, along with Franklin and Shalnark, found a new VHS tape in a pile of garbage. Chrollo decided to translate the film's content and create a dubbed version with his friends, which they then turned into live shows for all the kids of Meteor City to enjoy. However, one day, one of their friends, Sarasa, failed to show up to one of them, causing the others to go looking for her. To Chrollo's horror, he discovers the dismembered body of Sarasa in a black sack hanging from a tree. This set Chrollo on a mission for revenge by making Meteor City into a hub of crime and violence, in order to eventually draw in Sarasa's murderers. With this plan, the Phantom Troop was created. Hina, also known as Hina-chan, is a Chimera Ant, who was a key player in the Chimera Ant arc. Initially serving under Liol, Hina eventually defects from the Chimera Ant army and decides to live a life on her own terms. Hina's Nen ability allows her to remove Nen-based restrictions or conditions placed on others. This ability is particularly useful in negating the effects of other Nen abilities that have lingering or binding effects. For example, she can remove curses, seals, and other kinds of Nen-based constraints. However, when she does so, her belly inflates with the aura extracted afterwards, giving her the appearance of being pregnant. This essentially makes her a Nen exorcist. Hina's early life as a Chimera Ant was spent serving under Liol, a high-ranking officer in the Chimera Ant army. During this time, she was primarily involved in the army's efforts to expand their territory and gather more humans for their queen. However, as the arc of the story progresses, she's shown to be less and less interested in serving her primal ant duties to serve the king, and more interested in her own personal pleasures. After the death of the Chimera Ant King and the disbandment of the army, Hina teams up with Bizef and Welfin to travel to Meteor City in hopes of finding Gyro. Kurapika is one of the main protagonists in Hunter x Hunter, and a member of the Kurta clan, a group of people known for their scarlet eyes. When Kurapika's emotions are heightened, his eyes turn bright red, a trait highly coveted by black market collectors. Kurapika's Nen abilities are centered around his intense desire for vengeance. His primary ability, Chain Jail, allows him to conjure a chain that can bind and immobilize his target, suppressing their aura and rendering them helpless. This ability is bound by a strict condition. It can only be used on members of the Phantom Troop, greatly increasing its power. Kurapika also possesses the ability known as Emperor Time, which activates when his eyes turn scarlet. Emperor Time allows Kurapika to achieve 100% proficiency in all Nen categories, enabling him to use abilities outside his natural category of Conjuration with maximum efficiency. However, the drawback is significant, because every second using Emperor Time shortens Kurapika's lifespan by 1 hour. This ability is what makes Kurapika a specialist, although temporarily. In addition to Chain Jail and Emperor Time, Kurapika has developed several other abilities using his chains. This includes Dowsing Chain, a chain with a ball at the end that Kurapika uses for various purposes including tracking, interrogation, and combat. Then there's Judgment Chain, a chain that Kurapika can insert in the heart of his target, imposing a condition that, if violated, will result in instant death. Next there's Holy Chain, which can cure even serious injuries on Kurapika instantly, and Steel Chain, which upon piercing a target's body, drains their aura and steals one of their Nen abilities. Finally, there's Stealth Dolphin, which is a dolphin-like Nen beast, which can equip and analyze abilities stolen by Steel Chain. With this ability, the stolen Nen ability can also be transferred to another person. Kurapika's story is driven by his quest for revenge against the Phantom Troop, who massacred his clan and stole their scarlet eyes. He's first seen using his various abilities to great effect in his confrontation with Uvogin, a member of the Phantom Troop. Using his Chain Jail ability, Kurapika is able to subdue and even kill Uvogin, marking the first step in his journey of revenge. However, this victory comes at a cost, as Kurapika begins to grapple with the moral implications of his actions and the toll that this quest for revenge is taking on his soul. Melioran is a Chimera Ant who is a high-ranking officer of the Ant Queen. Unlike many of his fellow Chimera Ants, Melioran possesses a strong sense of morality, and eventually becomes an ally to the protagonists in their fight against the Chimera Ant King. Melioran's Nen ability God's Accomplice allows him to turn himself and anyone he's in physical contact with completely invisible. This ability is incredibly powerful in that it not only renders Melioran and his ally invisible, but it also completely erases their presence, making them undetectable by any means, including Nen. However, God's Accomplice has a major limitation. Melioran must hold his breath for the ability to remain active. If he exhales, the invisibility is broken. In addition to God's Accomplice, Melioran can also use an ability called Perfect Plan. This ability is similar to God's Accomplice in that it allows Melioran to turn invisible, but it only applies to himself and does not require him to hold his breath. While less powerful than God's Accomplice, Perfect Plan is highly effective for both stealth and reconnaissance. He was originally a loyal servant of the Chimera Ant Queen, and served as one of her squad leaders. However, once King Meruem was born, Melioran harbored a deep resentment towards the king and the Chimera Ant hierarchy. His hatred for Meruem stemmed from the fact that the king had killed Melioran's adoptive father from his human life, who was also a Chimera Ant named Peggy. This leads Melioran to defect from the army, and seeks out the hunters to join their cause. Melioran's defection is a significant moment in the Chimera Ant arc, as it marks the first time a Chimera Ant willingly chooses to ally with the humans. His abilities were crucial in the hunters' plan to assassinate the king, particularly in the infiltration of the king's palace. Neferpitou, often referred to simply as Pitou, is one of the 3 royal guards who served under Meruem. Pitou is a highly skilled and powerful Nen user, and their loyalty to the king is absolute. Pitou's Nen ability, Dr. Blythe, is a giant conjured doll used to treat any injury surgically. It's equipped with countless medical tools that can be used to provide first aid and perform major surgeries. In addition to Dr. Blythe, Pitou possesses a general puppeteering ability that takes control of a target through strings of aura that attaches to them. Finally, Terpsichore is an ability that conjures a ballerina-like puppeteer that takes control of Pitou themselves, enhancing their strength and speed. This ability can even take effect after Pitou's death, invoking post-mortem Nen. men. Pito's terrifying strength is put on full display when they brutally kill Kite, a close friend and mentor to Gon. This event sets the stage for one of the most intense confrontations in the series, as Gon becomes consumed with rage and seeks revenge against Pito. Fueled by rage and grief, Gon sacrifices his own life force to achieve a form powerful enough to defeat Pito. This gives him the power to easily kill them, who then uses Terpsichore to control her headless body and take out one of Gon's arms. Neon Nastrad is a young girl with a unique and highly sought-after Nen ability. She's the daughter of Light Nastrad, a mafia boss who uses her ability to expand his influence and wealth. Despite her father's criminal background, Neon herself is somewhat naive and detached from the violent world around her. Neon's Nen ability, Lovely Ghostwriter, allows her to predict the future by writing poems in a trance-like state. Each poem she writes provides detailed information about future events, often foretelling deaths or other significant occurrences. These predictions are highly accurate, making Lovely Ghostwriter an incredibly valuable ability, especially in the world of organized crime. The poems are written in a specific format, and each stanza corresponds to a different aspect of the future. Neon's ability is unique in that it doesn't directly harm others, but it can have significant indirect consequences. Her predictions are highly sought after by those in power, as they can be used to manipulate events and gain an advantage over rivals. Neon's ability becomes a central plot point during the York New City arc, where her predictions attract the attention of the Phantom Troop. Krollo Lucifer, a fellow specialist, successfully steals Neon's ability using a Skill Hunter ability. Later in the series, it's revealed that Krollo no longer has this ability in his book, alluding to a potentially grim fate for Neon in the end, as one of the only known ways an ability could disappear from his book is if the original user dies. Pakunoda was a member of the Phantom Troop and one of its founding members. She was deeply loyal to the group and served as its primary information gatherer, using her unique Nen ability to extract information from others. Pakunoda's ability, called Memory Bomb, allows her to extract and read the memories of others simply by touching them. She can then share these memories with others by firing them as memory bullets from her gun, which implants the memories directly into the minds of the targets. This ability makes Pakunoda an invaluable asset to the Phantom Troop, as she can quickly gather and disseminate critical information. Memory Bomb is a specialist ability that is both powerful and dangerous. It requires physical contact with the target, making it a highly invasive technique. Pakunoda's ability to implant memories into others also raises questions about consent and the manipulation of one's thoughts, adding a psychological dimension to her power. Pakunoda's backstory is closely tied to her role in the Phantom Troop. As one of its founding members, she was deeply involved in the group's activities from the beginning. Pakunoda's most significant moment occurs during the York New City arc, where she's captured by Kurapika. Kurapika then uses his Judgment Chain ability to place a Nen dagger in her heart, imposing a condition that she must not reveal any information about him to her fellow troop members. If she breaks the condition, she will die. Despite this, Pakunoda chooses to share the information she gathered with the other members of the troop, knowing full well this would result in her death. Leol was a Chimera ant that resembled an anthropomorphic lion. Before the death of the Chimera Ant Queen, he was known as Hagia, and one of the more particularly disloyal squadron leaders. His Nen ability was bestowed on him by Shiapoof after he spent 3 days in a cocoon. Leol's Nen ability is called Rental Pod. It allows him to temporarily borrow the Nen ability of other people. Leol must fulfill 2 conditions for each ability that he wants to borrow. First, he must know the name of the ability or have seen it being used. Second, he must do the owner of the ability a favor and confirm acceptance of the debt with a question, along the lines of saying something like, "You owe me on this one." Once Leol fulfills the conditions, the name of the owner, the ability, and the number of times it can be used, which is once per favor done for the owner, are all automatically recorded in the IOU dispenser, a small device resembling an iPod. If the owner of the ability dies, their information is automatically erased, and their ability can no longer be used. To access a borrowed Nen ability, Leol uses the dispenser to print out a ticket and tears it up, which grants him the use of the ability for 1 hour. During this time, the ability cannot be used by its original owner. The IOU dispenser can double as a portable music player, which Leol occasionally uses to keep track of how long he's been using an ability, by playing 1-hour-long albums. Through this device, Leol can also verify the status of any of the targets he can borrow an ability from. He's able to adapt very quickly to his borrowed abilities, identifying their main strengths efficiently and selecting the most suited to the situation. However, he's not as skilled when it comes to recognizing their downsides. For example, like how he didn't know the water summoned by Inamura would not recede after disengaging the technique because he was underground. Renko is an inhabitant of Meteor City's Kirimori Valley. She worked as an embalmer and was Machi's mentor in the art of Nen. Renko has the power to repair damaged human corpses by embalming them, which she calls her special ability, implying that it's her Nen ability. After the death of Sarasa, the children of Meteor City, including the soon-to-be Phantom Troop, went to visit her casket. They're astonished by how Sarasa looked so perfectly restored, even claiming that she still looked alive. After seeing this, Machi asks Renko if she can teach her to do the same, but Renko claims it's her special ability that lets her do so. However, it's believed that Machi developed her own Nen ability through learning from Renko. Saradnich Huigo-Ro is one of the most terrifying characters introduced in Hunter x Hunter. He's the fourth prince of the Kakin Empire, and one of the participants in the Succession War, a deadly battle among the royal family members to determine the next ruler of the empire. Saradnich is a sadistic and cruel individual, with a deep fascination for art and the macabre. Saradnich's Nen ability is called Parallel Future. When he closes his eyes and activates Zetsu, he receives a vision, which he refers to as precognition or a dream of the following 10 seconds. The vision is instantaneous. No time passes in the present between its beginning and its end, which are signaled by a sound and a visual pattern similar to static on a television. If after those ephemeral 10 seconds, he does not open his eyes or rescind his Zetsu, time outside of his premonition resumes moving as normal, but he continues to see 10 seconds into the future. In this state, Saradnich can see and hear what passes in his vision, while at the same time perceiving what occurs outside of it, and recovers his ability to move. After Saradnich rescinds the precognition part of his ability, a subsequent stage of the ability begins, and everyone who is shown in the vision, except for Saradnich himself, will perceive the next 10 seconds unfold exactly as he predicted, even if Saradnich uses his foreknowledge to change his course of action. It's truly a complicated ability that has many of its details yet to be sorted out. As a prince of the Kakin Empire, he was raised in luxury and given every advantage in life. However, his upbringing also fostered a sense of entitlement and a complete disregard for the lives of others. Saradnich's fascination with death and the macabre led him to commit heinous acts of violence, including the brutal murder of innocent people for his own amusement. He views the Succession War as a game, and he takes pleasure in the suffering of his siblings as they're eliminated one by one. Saradnich's cruelty and ambition make him one of the most dangerous participants in the war, as he is willing to do whatever it takes to win. What's truly stunning about his power as a specialist is that he's relatively new to Nen altogether. He didn't even know what his Nen ability was until he was shot in the head by Theta, one of his bodyguards that was secretly trying to kill him. This means that Parallel Future might still be in its early stages and could grow stronger over time. Omokage is a character from the Hunter x Hunter movie Phantom Rouge, and is considered non-canon to the main story, so we're not going to spend much time covering him here. He was the former number 4 Spider of the Phantom Troop, and had the ability to create dolls who took the form of whoever the target thinks of most. He could also fuse dolls into himself, and use the Nen abilities of whoever the dolls take the form of. It's also worth mentioning that Chimera Ant King Meruem is not on this list. He's technically classified as an emitter, but his ability of aura synthesis seems to fit the qualities of a specialist ability. I couldn't find anything that officially labeled him as a specialist, so I couldn't add him to this list. Isaac Netero stands as one of the most iconic figures in the series, having served as the 12th chairman of the Hunter Association and widely acknowledged as one of the strongest Nen users in history. A warrior at his core, Netero devoted his entire existence to perfecting his craft, mastering enhancement to an unparalleled degree. His signature Nen ability, 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva, manifests as a colossal multi-armed deity capable of unleashing devastatingly fast and powerful strikes within seconds. Netero complements this with 4 distinct techniques. Third Hand, which is a crushing clapping motion that traps targets between the Bodhisattva's hands. 99th Hand, a relentless barrage of palm strikes from each of the deity's arms that creates a massively powerful attack capable of carving deep into the earth. And his ultimate technique, Zero Hand, which is a last resort attack that channels all of Netero's entire aura reserves into one cataclysmic blast fired from the deity's mouth, unleashing an enormous flare of unmatched destructive force. Netero's most iconic moment comes during his confrontation with Meruem, the Chimera Ant King. Despite being severely outmatched in raw strength and endurance, Netero demonstrates the tactical brilliance and indomitable spirit that defines his character. Utilizing Guanyin Bodhisattva's incredible speed and precision, he launches an unrelenting assault against Meruem, maintaining tactical superiority throughout. Even when Meruem eventually adapts to his strategies, Netero forces the king into an exhausting battle that culminates in the ultimate gambit, the Poor Man's Rose. By sacrificing his life, piercing his own heart to detonate the hidden bomb, Netero demonstrates his unwavering determination to protect humanity at any cost. Goto serves as a butler for the Zoldyck family, entrusted with watching over Killua Zoldyck. As a long-time and trusted servant, Goto approaches his duties with utmost seriousness, displaying unwavering loyalty and a stern demeanor. His signature Nen ability, Coin Gatling, perfectly encapsulates his precision and lethality. He channels his aura to propel coins at incredible speeds, transforming them into high-velocity projectiles more lethal than conventional bullets, capable of penetrating flesh and overwhelming opponents with ease. When necessary, Goto can incorporate a rifling effect into his coins, sacrificing some velocity for increased penetrative power. The rifling is so intense that the coins maintain their spiraling trajectory and continue piercing targets even when momentarily impeded, like when we saw when they were shot against Hisoka's bungee gum. During the 13th Hunter Chairman election arc, Goto engages in combat with Hisoka while protecting Killua and Alluka. Demonstrating remarkable accuracy with his coin bullets, Goto proves himself a formidable opponent, showcasing both his combat prowess and his unwavering dedication to his duty. Despite his tactical acumen and powerful Nen ability, Goto ultimately falls to Hisoka's bungee gum, which interestingly possesses both the properties of rubber and gum, but that's for a different video. In a cruel twist, Hisoka turns Goto's own coins against him, delivering a fatal blow in one fluid, efficient motion. Gedo. In the realm of Heaven's Arena, Gedo emerges as a formidable enhancer and former participant who first crossed paths with Gon and Killua during their early journey into mastering Nen. His combat style revolves around the strategic use of mechanical weapons, which he seemingly integrates with his 3 distinct Nen abilities. His primary technique, Battle Waltz, involves launching dancing tops at tremendous velocities, creating a whirlwind of attacks that assail enemies from multiple angles simultaneously. Given the inherent simplicity of the spinning tops, their programming remains basic yet effective. Gedo circumvents this limitation by commanding them to attack indiscriminately, except for himself, which inadvertently makes their movements highly unpredictable and difficult to counter. His most devastating technique, Tornado Top, enables him to transform himself into a human spinning top, utilizing his peg leg while shrouded in aura for both offensive strikes and defensive maneuvers, which are capable of repelling opponents with tremendous force upon contact. His final ability, Shotgun Blues, complements his arsenal by allowing him to rapidly deploy multiple spinning tops in quick succession, launching direct attacks at enemies with exceptional speed. Unlike Battle Waltz, these tops maintain a focused assault on their targets, making evasion particularly challenging. During their initial encounter, Gedo thoroughly dominates Gon due to the latter's inexperience with Nen. However, their second meeting tells a different story. Gon cleverly exploits Gedo's over-reliance on his spinning tops, enduring significant damage but ultimately turning the tide with his quick reflexes, coupled with his natural fighting instincts, successfully breaking Gedo's leg and claiming victory. Ikalgo. A unique figure in the Chimera Ant arc, Ikalgo transitions from adversary to invaluable ally of both Killua and Gon. Unlike fellow Chimera Ants, he possesses a contemplative nature and compassionate heart that ultimately lead him to question and reject the destructive path of his own kind. As an octopus Chimera Ant, he retains aquatic characteristics while favoring strategic combat over brute force. His primary Nen ability, Living Dead Dolls, grants him the power to inhabit and control corpses, allowing him to manipulate their movements, voices, and even access their Nen abilities. While typically residing in the host's head, Ikalgo can exit from various points of the body, though he cannot prevent natural decomposition. His secondary enhancement ability, Fleedom, enables him to transform 2 tentacles into an air rifle. When controlling a corpse, Ikalgo loads this weapon with specialized giant fleas, whose saliva contains potent anticoagulant properties, strong enough to affect even someone of Killua's caliber. These flea bullets demonstrate impressive range and velocity, capable of knocking unsuspecting targets back several meters. Initially struggling against Welfin's predatory abilities, Ikalgo proves his tactical prowess by exploiting the bunker's environment and employing psychological warfare to secure victory. Following the Chimera Ant arc's conclusion, Ikalgo survives to enjoy a peaceful existence after the Chimera Ant King's defeat. Bill. Within the intense drama of the Succession arc, Bill emerges as a crucial supporting character whose expertise as a botanist complements his abilities as an enhancer. Working alongside Kurapika as part of Prince Wobel's security detail, Bill demonstrates exceptional composure and unwavering loyalty throughout their dangerous mission aboard the Black Whale. His Nen ability, Origeron, exemplifies his enhancement affinity, allowing him to dramatically accelerate living organisms' growth by channeling aura through his palms. Though not primarily combat-oriented, Bill's resourcefulness and strength prove invaluable when collaborating with Kurapika to outmaneuver hostile forces, whether they be rival bodyguards or assassins targeting the royal family. His steadfast support and practical capabilities enable Kurapika to focus on broader strategic objectives, underlining Bill's essential role in their survival amid the chaos of the Succession War. Dogman. As the highest-ranking member of the Heoli family, Dogman has established himself as their most effective killer, combining sadistic tendencies with a sophisticated understanding of enhancement Nen. His approach to combat likely emphasizes raw power and resilience, typical of enhancers who prioritize straightforward strength over complexity. Having reached level 62 through Morena's Nen ability Contagion, Dogman's aura capacity and output have increased dramatically, allowing him to use Supernatural Smell, a specialized ability that enables him to detect enemy presence and makes it possible for him to identify a person's Nen type from 5 meters away and Nen proficiency from 2 meters away. His main combat potential, though, remains mostly unexplored at this point. Uvogin. A founding member of the Phantom Troop, Uvogin exemplifies raw power as their number 11 member, harboring intense loyalty, particularly towards his best friend Nobunaga, who we'll be talking about in a bit. His reputation stems from immense physical prowess and unwavering battle confidence, perfectly embodying an enhancer's purest traits. His signature Nen ability, Big Bang Impact, channels concentrated aura into his fist through Ko, amplifying his natural strength to catastrophic levels, enabling him to obliterate enemies with a single strike and withstand massive damage without hesitation. Uvogin's most impressive display occurs during his confrontation with the Shadow Beasts, the Mafia's elite fighters. Surrounded and outnumbered, he demonstrates overwhelming power by effortlessly defeating all 4 opponents. His Big Bang Impact creates devastating shockwaves that not only destroys his enemies, but leave massive craters in the ground, highlighting both his tremendous strength and absolute confidence. However, Uvogin meets his end in an epic battle against Kurapika, who seeks vengeance for the Kurta clan massacre. Despite his immense power, he falls to Kurapika's chain jail, specially designed to neutralize troop members. Kurapika exploits Uvogin's overconfidence, defeating him with a judgment chain through the heart, though Uvogin maintained his loyalty to the troop even in death. Castro. A prominent figure in Heaven's Arena, Castro came close to ascending to the prestigious position of Floor Master, earning him widespread respect for his exceptional might, endurance, and uniquely crafted battle style that merges enhancement with creative Nen applications. His main Nen ability, Tiger Bite Fist, channels enhanced aura into his hands, precisely mimicking the devastating power of tiger claws and fangs, enabling him to execute attacks with such ferocity that they can easily mutilate opponents. Although primarily an enhancer, Castro ambitiously and also foolishly extends into manipulation and conjuration to develop Double, creating a fully functional clone that perfectly mirrors his movements and attacks, in theory allowing him to overwhelm opponents with synchronized assaults of unprecedented precision. However, the complexity required to maintain Double demands extraordinary mental concentration and depletes significant aura reserves, ultimately leaving him vulnerable. It also can't be understated how this ability utilizes the 2 worst complementary affinities for enhancers, meaning the ability will never exceed a small percentage of Castro's overall potential. Having previously suffered defeat at Hisoka's hands, Castro channels every ounce of his being into their rematch, initially gaining the upper hand through masterful application of his double technique in landing several decisive blows. However, Hisoka's superior Nen mastery and psychological warfare ultimately exposed the fundamental weakness in Castro's strategy, the severe aura drain caused by Double, and the small details that distinguish the clone from Castro. This strategic oversight leads to Castro's downfall as Hisoka systematically dismantles his technique before ending his life in a particularly brutal and humiliating fashion. Komugi. Emerging as a pivotal figure in the Chimera Ant-Arc, Komugi represents humanity's resilience and complexity through her role as a blind Gungi prodigy from humble origins. Her enhancement Nen manifests uniquely, rapidly evolving her gaming abilities after each match. Enhancement seems to give her a boost in mental capacity instead of the usual physical one. Her significance grows when summoned to challenge Meruem, the Chimera Ant King, in Gungi. Initially dismissed, her brilliant strategies, humble nature, and unwavering dedication earn Meruem's deepest respect and admiration, fostering an unprecedented bond. Through countless matches, she consistently outmaneuvers the king, demonstrating extraordinary mental acuity and focus. Beyond the game, her influence profoundly transforms Meruem, revealing his capacity for compassion and self-reflection, fundamentally altering his view on humanity. Their story concludes tragically, as both succumb to radiation poisoning. Maha Zoldyck. Within the legendary Zoldyck assassin family, Maha Zoldyck stands as the eldest known member, a figure whose reputation precedes his mysterious presence. As family patriarch, he embodies generations of unparalleled assassination expertise and lethal precision. Though not explicitly confirmed, his enhancement affinity aligns with his renowned physical prowess as an assassin. While his direct appearances remain limited, Maha's historical significance resonates throughout the series, particularly through his legendary encounter with Isaac Netero. The fact that Netero is known as the only one to survive a battle with Maha cements the latter's position among the series' most formidable figures. Speculation suggests his true identity is Zig Zoldyck, one of two companions who ventured with Netero to the Dark Continent in years past. Nobunaga Hazama. A founding member of the Phantom Troupe, Nobunaga distinguishes himself through exceptional swordsmanship and unwavering loyalty. His boisterous personality and quick temper belly masterful combat abilities, especially in close-quarter sword fighting. His enhancement affinity perfectly complements his katana expertise, allowing him to amplify his speed, precision, and striking power during combat, though a specific nen ability remains undisclosed. Nobunaga's most compelling moment occurs during his confrontation with Gon and Killua in York New City. Though brief, the encounter showcases his extraordinary reflexes and swordsmanship when he intercepts Killua's escape attempt, positioning himself with his blade ready before Killua can even react, demonstrating his mastery over close combat and establishing himself as one of the troupe's most dangerous members in close-range encounters. Orarge. As a member of the Heoli family, Orarge embodies the group's sadistic tendencies while maintaining steadfast obedience to their cause. Having reached level 21 through Morena's Nen ability, his enhanced aura capacity and output hint at a significant combat potential, though a specific Nen ability remains unrevealed. While his combat appearances remain limited, Orarge demonstrates impressive reflexes when intercepting a thrown knife with a book in order to protect an ally, suggesting his enhancement abilities significantly boost his physical capabilities. Palm Siberia. Within the complex narrative of the Chimera Ant arc, Palm Siberia emerges as an emotionally intricate and unpredictable character, whose volatile nature hides her exceptional capabilities as an enhancer. Initially training under Nalv's guidance, Palm develops an intense dedication to her mission as a hunter, while simultaneously forming a deeply protective and eventually romantic attachment to Gon during their time together. Her primary Nen ability, Wink Blue, demonstrates remarkable sophistication, allowing her to register anyone she observes with her right eye in her crystal ball, maintaining constant surveillance through her left eye, regardless of the distance or obstacles. Her defensive technique, Black Widow, showcases creative applications of her abilities, utilizing her own hair to form an elegant yet protective dress and wide-brimmed hat that shields her from enemy attacks, enabling her to focus all of her aura into offensive co-strikes rather than dividing it between attack and defense. The most significant transformation in Palm's journey occurs during her capture by the Chimera Ants, where she undergoes both physical metamorphosis into a hybrid and initial mental conditioning. Yet despite these profound changes, the core of Palm's humanity perseveres. Her unwavering spirit and loyalty to her comrades ends up shining through as she overcomes her conditioning, becoming a crucial ally in the fight against the Ants again. Finks McCub. As the number 5 member of the Phantom Troupe, Finks commands respect through his reliability and fierce loyalty, particularly evident in his close partnership with Phaeton. Though his impulsive nature and hot-headed demeanor might suggest otherwise, he demonstrates refined fighting skills and a deep camaraderie with his fellow troop members. His enhancement affinity perfectly suits his direct combat approach, manifesting in his devastating Nen ability, Ripper Cyclotron. This technique allows him to multiply his punch's power by winding up his arm like a spring. The more rotations, the greater the destructive force, making it an exceptionally versatile close combat ability. Finks demonstrates this devastating power during the Chimera Ant arc against the Gorilla Ant. While not fully unleashed in this encounter, his technique's reputation suggests catastrophic potential. Rabbit Dog. As a formidable member of the Shadow Beasts, the elite Nen-using guard force serving the Tendons within the Mafia community, Rabbit Dog poses a unique use of enhancement. His personality aligns seamlessly with his enhancement type ability, called Poison Fangs, a technique that dramatically amplifies his jaw strength and the lethal sharpness of his poisonous teeth, allowing him to inject powerful neurotoxins capable of paralyzing even the most formidable opponents with a single bite. During the Shadow Beast's coordinated assault on Uvogin, Rabbit Dog demonstrates the true extent of his capabilities in a display of both power and tactical precision. Rabbit Dog seizes a crucial opening to tear away a significant portion of flesh from Uvogin's shoulder, achieving the remarkable feat of penetrating the spider's seemingly impervious skin using nothing but enhanced teeth. Pressing his advantage, Rabbit Dog executes a second strategic strike, sinking his fangs into Uvogin's thigh, while confidently taunting his increasingly unsteady opponent. His tactical prowess shines as he expertly evades Uvogin's retaliations, patiently waiting for his neurotoxins to take full effect, until the mighty spider finally succumbs to paralysis and collapses to the ground. However, Rabbit Dog's triumph is short-lived, as Uvogin eventually overcomes the paralysis through sheer force of will, leading to Rabbit Dog's ultimate demise at the hands of the enraged Phantom Troupe member. Ramat. Emerging as an officer within Colt's squad during the Chimera Ant arc, Ramut stands out as an aggressive, violence-loving character among the early Chimera Ant soldiers. His significance grows as one of the first ants to awaken Nen abilities after exposure to Gon and Killua's aura. As an enhancer, his physical capabilities reach impressive heights, complemented by his signature ability Feather Blades, transforming his arm feathers into lethal cutting implements. His Nen mastery extends to fundamental techniques, including Zetsu, Ten, Ren, and Gyo. Following his Nen awakening, Ramut seeks revenge against Gon and Killua, but gravely underestimates his opponent's growth, leading to a quick and humiliating death at the hands of Killua. Tevelaris. Within the Haoli family's ranks, Tevelaris emerges as a tense, easily provoked individual, whose enhancement abilities are amplified by reaching level 51 through Morena's contagion. While being at such a high level likely means significant increases in both aura quantity and output, his specific Nen ability remains undefined. His lack of combat appearances maintains an air of mystery around his true capabilities, leaving his potential unexplored in the series, at least to this point. Wing. As a pivotal mentor figure introduced in Heaven's Arena, Wing brings his experience as Biscuit Kruger's disciple to guide the next generation of Nen users. Though his personal Nen ability remains unknown, his comprehensive understanding of Nen principles makes him an invaluable teacher, specifically in instructing the 4 fundamental techniques: Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu. His measured yet firm teaching approach proves crucial in developing Gon and Killua's potential. Recognizing their exceptional promise, Wing takes the calculated risk of teaching them Nen despite its dangers. This foundational training enables them to awaken their aura nodes and develop crucial defensive capabilities, setting the stage for their remarkable growth throughout the series. His guidance leaves an undeniable mark on both students, contributing significantly to their future success. Zeho. A member of both Team Hans and Kazula's alliance in Greed Island, Zeho is likely one of the weaker enhancers shown in the series. Despite his confidence in physical capabilities, his weakness as an enhancer becomes apparent through his inability to even produce Ren, or develop a unique Nen ability. His limitations are so evident that Killua assesses that he could defeat Zeho without implying Nen. This assessment proves accurate when he fails to move Bopobo even slightly during their confrontation, resulting in a swift defeat. Gon Freaks. As the central protagonist of the series, and the son of legendary hunter Jing Freaks, Gon embarks on an extraordinary journey to follow his father's footsteps, while demonstrating remarkable natural talent for Nen, and an unshakable spirit. His affinity for enhancement manifests in his signature ability, Jajanken, an ingeniously straightforward yet effective adaptation of rock, paper, scissors, transformed into powerful combat techniques. Rock, his primary and most devastating attack, channels his natural enhancement affinity into a close-range punch of extraordinary power, surpassing the destructive capability of a standard Ko-Strike by a significant margin. His secondary technique, Scissors, demonstrates his ability to transmute his aura into an extended blade projected from his fingers, providing effective mid-range combat options, while Paper employs a mission to launch a concentrated sphere of aura as a ranged attack, though at reduced power, due to its distance from his natural enhancement affinity. The discovery of Kite's tragic fate triggers a profound transformation in Gon, as overwhelming grief and vengeful rage drive him to make the ultimate sacrifice, trading all his future Nen potential to achieve an immediate adult transformation, instantly gaining physical capabilities equivalent to those he would have possessed in his prime. In this transformed state, his enhancement abilities, aura output, and reserves reach unprecedented levels, enabling him to completely overwhelm Pito with devastating force. The true extent of this power manifests in the most catastrophic version of Jajanken Rock ever witnessed in the series, absolutely crushing Pito with a single strike, delivering a final merciless assault, even after her body had already died. Killua later observes that achieving such power would normally require decades of intense training, highlighting the magnitude of Gon's sacrifice. However, this immense power extracts a terrible price. Gon's body suffers critical damage, permanently losing all Nen abilities and sacrificing a portion of his natural lifespan. Only through Killua's desperate intervention and Nanika's power does Gon survive this near-fatal transformation, though this moment marks a decisive turning point in his journey, as he must now confront life without Nen abilities that once defined his path forward. Nen Inscription is an advanced form of using Nen, where aura-infused symbols and scripts are put on objects to enforce conditions, vows, or restrictions. The mechanics behind Inscription is still pretty mysterious, but it seems to work kind of like casting spells on things. We first see this in chapter 51, when Wing gives Gon a string to remind him not to use Nen for 2 months. Later in chapter 56, when Wing gives Gon the green light to use his Nen again, the string breaks as soon as Gon does. Wing explains that he inscribed the string so it would snap if Gon used Nen, which would show that he broke his promise. The second time we see an inscription is in chapter 65, when Gon and Killua try to open the unbreakable iron box that Jing left behind for Gon. Once Gon uses his Nen, the box breaks apart. It turns out the box was made of several plates engraved with inscriptions like Wing's string, and both reacted to Nen in the same way. Inside another box is a ring with similar engravings, which Killua guesses is tied to Greed Island's safe system. From these examples, we can gather that inscriptions make objects stronger and trigger specific events when a condition, like being exposed to Nen, is met. However, the rings in Greed Island don't break when they come into contact with Nen, which hints that inscriptions can do more than just strengthen objects or break when exposed to Nen. When players enter Greed Island, they get a ring with engravings that let them use in-game abilities like conjuring the book or using the command Gain, so inscriptions clearly have a range of uses. In chapter 342, we see Beyond Netero wearing handcuffs with inscriptions while he's imprisoned. Given how strong Beyond is, he would easily break normal handcuffs if he wanted. This shows another use for inscriptions, where they can restrict someone from using Nen while they're in possession of the engraved object. This could be how the Hunter Association restrains Nen using criminals, who would be hard to imprison otherwise. Hisoka's past remains one of the biggest mysteries in the series, as Togashi prefers to keep his backstory shrouded in mystery to preserve the enigmatic nature of his character. However, in June of 2016, Sui Ishida, the author of Tokyo Ghoul, released a prequel one-shot featuring Hisoka's origin story. The story is set in Glam Gas Land, where young Hisoka is discovered by Moritonio, the ringmaster of a circus troupe. Impressed by Hisoka's magical skills, Moritonio brings him into the troupe, where Hisoka quickly stands out with his incredible juggling and dexterity. Meanwhile, a serial killer known as John Doe or 100 Face is on the loose, causing chaos in the area. Moritonio starts teaching Hisoka about Nen, and being the prodigy that he is, Hisoka picks it up super fast, mastering techniques that would normally take years to learn. As things move forward, another circus performer, Abaki, gets attacked by John Doe after she accidentally witnessed him in the act of assaulting a random man. Hisoka steps in and saves her, but he senses something isn't right. After a big performance at the Royal Glam Hotel, Hisoka confronts Moritonio, accusing him of being John Doe. Moritonio admits to it, revealing that he has a dark past where he killed his own sister just for the thrill. He says he created the circus to satisfy his twisted urges in what he claims to be a less harmful way, but he still couldn't resist hurting people. He then shows Hisoka his Nen ability, Scarf Ace, which lets him swap faces, explaining how he's been getting away with murders as John Doe. The confrontation turns into a fight, with Moritonio using his blood magnet power to attack Hisoka with magnetic bars. However, Hisoka reveals his own newly developed Nen ability, Bungee Gum, which if you guys aren't aware by now, has the properties of both rubber and gum. With this, Hisoka turns the attack onto Moritonio, finishing him off. In the end, Hisoka changes Moritonio's face to the one he had when attacking Abaki, framing him as John Doe before leaving the scene. While Ishida's version is recognized by Togashi, it may or may not be considered canon. Journey to the New World is a journal written by Don Freaks about his travels to the Dark Continent. Over 300 years ago, Don ventured there alone and explored the Mobius shoreline, documenting his journey in 2 volumes, the East Edition and the West Edition. However, only the East Edition has been found. Copies of it are stored in the basement of the International Permit Agency, and the book has become legendary, offering valuable insight into the Dark Continent, including information on the 5 threats that humanity brought back from there. The West Edition, though, hasn't been found yet. Jing Freaks believes that Don might actually still be writing it, hinting that Don, who could be his ancestor, is still out there exploring the uncharted western part of the Dark Continent. This might be possible because Don knew about nitro rice, a grain that can extend someone's life. If that's true, the West Edition could also contain even more dangerous threats and treasures than what's in the eastern part. It is unclear how the IPA got their hands on the East Edition or where it was found, but some fans think Don may have published it in the known world before heading back to the Dark Continent to complete the 2nd edition. The identity of Gon's mother has been an interesting topic of discussion within the Hunter x Hunter fanbase, especially since it seems that keeping the intrigue around Gon's biological mother is something that's very intentional. One interesting theory is that Gon's mom could be a highly rated hunter herself. This theory says that Gon's unique personality, which is pretty different from Jing's, could come from a mom who also put her career as a hunter over being a parent. It would explain Gon's strong Nen abilities and why he's unusually powerful for his age. But the wildest theory involves the Pregnancy Stone card from Greed Island, which was designed by Jing. This card lets players become pregnant by carrying a stone for a month, and this is regardless of their gender. They can even choose the baby's gender by picking the right stone. Some fans think Jing used this card to, quote, create Gon. The idea is that since Gon's mom is never shown or mentioned, Jing might have used this card to have Gon himself. And since Gon had his own ring and binder for Greed Island, he could have been born from the game's mechanics rather than through a normal pregnancy. There are a few issues with this theory though. First, in a cassette tape message to Gon, Jing mentions Gon's mom and even recorded her voice, so this means that she does exist, though Gon chooses not to listen to her voice. So there is a possibility that Jing was just trying to play a trick on Gon and would reveal that he was also his mother in the second recording. Second, if the card was used, it implies Gon is entirely made of Nen, which would lead to some problems. For example, after the Chimera Antarch, Gon loses his ability to use Nen, so if he was purely a Nen being, it's unclear how he would even survive without accessing it. Jing Freaks' reputation in the Hunter Association, and the way Netero praises him, show just how skilled he is at Nen. However, we haven't seen his actual Nen abilities in the series, leaving many to speculate his true potential. While we still don't know which Nen category he belongs to, he's shown serious skill in both emission and manipulation, like when he stored his aura in a tape and gave it the command to self-delete after playing. The command still worked 10 years later, and the aura was strong enough to block a punch from Killua, showing he also has solid skills in enhancement. A great example of Jing's Nen mastery came when he flawlessly copied Leorio's remote punch on the first try. He explained that he can usually mimic other people's attack abilities after being hit by them, but noted that it's a natural talent, not a Nen ability. One theory suggests that Jing is a master emitter, with an ability that allows him to link his aura with his own teammates' aura nodes, giving everyone in the group access to each other's aura pools and allowing them all to be more proficient in all Nen categories. The catch is that this only works with people who fully trust him and are united under a common goal. This could explain why Jing is always part of a group, whether it's the non-profit organization, the Greed Island creators, the Zodiacs, or Beyond Netero's Dark Continent expedition team. With this ability, plus his knack for recreating Hatsu just from seeing it in action, a team led by Jing could probably accomplish anything. This could even be the key to how Greed Island was created. Another theory says that Jing is an enhancer, with the ability to expand his memory capacity. This would let him create and use multiple Hatsus without overloading his ability to control Nen. In Greed Island, there are over 100 different cards, most with their own unique abilities. Even for a team of 10 Nen Masters, creating that many Hatsus would be impossible without memory overload. So the theory is that Jing enhanced his own memory space with some kind of restriction. One final theory suggests that Jing might not have a unique ability at all. Given his strong desire for freedom, he might have rejected the idea of limiting himself to one Hatsu. This refusal to commit to a single ability could act as a self-imposed restriction, which amplifies any ability he copies, explaining why he's so good at mimicking others' techniques. The Kurta clan plays a major role in the story, as it's where Kurapika comes from and is the reason he's so driven to become a hunter. We don't know much about their origins, but we do know they were a small, isolated group of 128 people living in a beautiful forest in Luxo province. The Kurta were known by their scarlet eyes, which were so stunning that they became a hot commodity for collectors. Unfortunately, people outside the clan would fear them when they saw their eyes change, which is why the Kurta chose to live in seclusion. When Kurapika finally left the clan to find a doctor for his friend Pyro, the Phantom Troop slaughtered the entire clan to sell their eyes, leaving Kurapika as the only survivor. This tragedy sparked his vow for revenge against the group and his mission to recover the stolen eyes of his people, some suggesting that there's much more to them than we know. One theory claims that the clan elders killed a woman who accidentally found their village, and this woman happened to be a friend of the Phantom Troop, which is why they attacked the Kurta clan in retaliation. This could explain the note that the spiders left behind that reads, "We'll accept anything you leave, but don't ever take anything away from us." However, this is all of course speculation, considering the woman is likely not dead. A more plausible explanation is that the woman was working with the Phantom Troop all along, and was sent to spy on the clan. Another theory suggests that the Kurta clan originally came from the Dark Continent, and migrated to the known world long before Kurapika's time. This might make sense, given their unique trait of eyes turning scarlet with intense emotions. Plus, there are little clues of this being the case, like the large birds they use for travel also seem to be able to be found on the Dark Continent, and the design on the eye drop bottle used during the Kurta clan trials looks very similar to the design on the gate to the New World, all of which might support this theory. Gyro is the founder and former king of NGL. His backstory is one of the most captivating ones in the series, as we get to see his rough childhood, being constantly abused by his alcoholic father. Despite everything, Gyro still respected his father, and thought his brutal upbringing was an act of fatherly love. But at the age of 12, he found out his father didn't care about him at all, and that's when he snapped. Gyro ended up killing his father and leaving the construction camp they lived on, swearing to spread evil across the world. He created a new narcotic drug to ruin people's lives, and worked his way up in the underworld, eventually founding NGL and becoming its king. However, things went south when he was captured by the Chimera Ants and eaten by the Queen. But Gyro's willpower was so strong that even after being reborn as a Chimera Ant, he kept his memories and broke free from the Queen's control. After escaping, he was seen wandering around Dali City, where Gon and Killua were set to meet up Knuckle and Shoot. Now with his new power as a Chimera Ant, Gyro is ready to spread his evil plans on a whole new level. He hasn't been seen since, but Welfin thinks his king might be planning to start a new nation in Meteor City. Togashi himself hints that Gyro will play a major role in the future, especially with his new powers and his ambitions to take over entire nations. The Sonata of Darkness is a piece of music rumored to be composed by the devil himself, and it's said that anyone who plays or even listens to it will be terribly cursed. The piece has solo parts for piano, violin, harp, and flute. Melody once heard the flute solo, which dramatically changed her appearance, and her friend who played it died in a gruesome way. The sonata also gave Melody an unnatural sense of hearing, but she said that she'd give anything to go back to how she was before. When Melody tells Kurapika about the sonata, he hesitates to believe her at first, but then she rolls up her sleeve to show him what the sonata did to her. While we don't know what her arm looks like, Kurapika's reaction says it all, as he shivers at the sight of it. Melody reveals that she's searching for the deadly musical score so she can destroy it. The mystery around the sonata has started to become more clear recently, since the introduction of the Dark Continent. Many believe the sonata has a deep connection with this mysterious place, which could explain why Melody joined the expedition to the New World. Also, many have noticed similarities between the sonata and one of the Dark Continent's known calamities, known as PAP. PAP's description reads, "The trade-off between life and pleasure. Melody's friend lost his life for the pleasure of playing the music, and he died in a way that's similar to the victims of the Dark Continent's calamities. PAP's victims are shrunken to the size of dolls, and Melody herself looks unusually small, possibly partially shrunken, since she only suffered part of the effects of the music. If her arms look like something caused by PAP, Kurapika's reaction would make sense." Jing Freaks also mentions that victims of PAP have been found in the known world, and it's possible that Melody's friend, and others who had access to the sheet music, could be among them. There's no confirmation the sonata is related to PAP, and it could just be an entirely separate calamity on its own. Besides the Sonata of Darkness, there's another mysterious item that also needs to come into play in the story, the Hermit's Scroll. Early on, Hanzo mentioned that he wanted to become a hunter to track down this elusive scroll, which is said to be hidden in a country closed off to outsiders. Initially, some people thought this was referring to NGL, but now most people believe it's actually talking about the Dark Continent. No one knows exactly what kind of power the Hermit Scroll holds, but most people think it probably contains secret ninjutsu techniques, making it a prized target for ninjas like Hanzo. It's possible that Hanzo, using his perks as a hunter, gathered intel and discovered the scroll is in the Dark Continent. This might be why he accepted Kurapika's job offer to work as a bodyguard for a Kakin prince, seeing it as his ticket to the Dark Continent. Another theory suggests that the Kakin Empire itself has the Hermit Scroll, since Hanzo seems to be very familiar with this country he mentioned. Maha Zoldyck is the oldest known member of the Zoldyck family, said to be around 120 years old. He's believed to be Zeno's grandfather, which was confirmed when Zeno mentioned that Netero once fought his grandfather and was the first person to fight him and survive. That alone says a lot about Maha's strength, considering Netero is known as the strongest Nen user in the world. Since Maha is the only person we know who survived a battle with Netero, it's safe to say that he was probably at least the second strongest Nen user in his prime. We don't know much about him, but he did make an appearance in the series when he helped Illumi and Kaluto take down the 10 Dons. Based on his appearance, some think his personality and style are pretty similar to Killua's. This has led to speculation that Maha might have had an ability like Killua's Godspeed, which could explain how he kept up with Netero in their fights. Interestingly, the 2004 Hunter x Hunter databook described Maha as Zeno's father instead of grandfather, but in chapter 264, it looks like Togashi retconned him to be Zeno's grandfather after all. His age may have been changed as well, as the family tree shows him being around the same age as Netero. This retcon caused confusion among some people, with some mistaking Maha for Zig Zoldyck, who speculated to be Zeno's father. It's even possible that Maha and Zig are the same person, and that his name, age, and family relation were all retconned or mistranslated. Kite's demise at the hands of Pitou was one of the most shocking moments in the series, but his reincarnation as a female Chimera Ant was just as surprising. Jing Freaks hinted that Kite might have had an ability that could explain it, and that points to his Nen ability Crazy Slots, specifically the weapons we haven't seen yet. Right before his death, Kite rolled slot number 3, which likely played a big role in his revival. One popular idea is that number 3 could be connected to some general reincarnation ability that activates after death, which would invoke postmortem Nen. Of course, this would require a host to deliver his rebirth, and the nearby queen proved to be the most ideal. Another theory is that it's a soul transfer ability, letting Kite's soul or consciousness move into another body, which makes sense given that Nen can linger after death, aka postmortem Nen. His soul may have just accidentally gone into the nearby Chimera Ant fetus instead of a human one. Benny Delon was a legendary blacksmith, known for creating the famous Ben's knives, but there's a dark twist to his story. He was a knife shop owner living about 100 years before the current events of the series, and was also secretly a serial killer. Every time he murdered someone, he would forge a knife with a number marked on it to commemorate the crime. Although he probably wasn't aware of Nen, Benny somehow infused aura into these knives during the forging process. This aura still lingers in the present and can be sensed by Nen users or seen through Gyo. Benny would mix in these special knives with the regular ones in his shop, and over time, he made a total of 288 Ben's knives. While in prison, he's reported to have said, "Each of my victims' screams and facial expressions inspired my work." Despite his twisted nature, Benny was so skilled at his craft that some people considered him as an artist, and even had a cult following during his life. Gon and Killua come across one of his knives at a market in York New City, where they sense the lingering aura coming from it. Killua easily recognizes it as a Ben's knife, and mentions that his father Silva is a fan of Benny's work. One of these knives ends up in the hands of Chrollo, who used it against Silva during a fight. Silva immediately recognizes the knife and its poison, using his own hair as a tourniquet around his arm to stop the poison from spreading. So far, we've only seen 2 out of the 288 Ben's knives in the series, and each one seems to have its own deadly ability. The one Chrollo uses generates a powerful poison, capable of paralyzing an entire whale. Even after Benny's death, the fact that aura still remains on the knives after so many years could hint at the possibility of Benny being a powerful emitter or even a specialist. Floor Masters are the top 21 fighters in Heaven's Arena, and they each get their own floor between the 230th and 250th levels. To become a Floor Master, you need to win 10 matches on the 200th floor without losing more than 4 of them. After that, you get a chance to challenge an existing Floor Master, and if you defeat them, you take their spot. Floor Masters can also join Battle Olympia, a tournament held every 2 years, where the winner gets to live in a fancy penthouse on the 251st floor. So far, the only confirmed Floor Masters in the story are Chrollo and Hisoka. Hisoka actually became eligible after defeating Gon, and then later beat a Floor Master to claim their spot. Castro, who was considered just as strong as a Floor Master, never got the chance to challenge one, because Hisoka finished him off. Judging by how powerful Chrollo and Hisoka are, it's safe to say that other Floor Masters are no joke either. This being said, let's forget about the non-canon Floor Masters from the 2013 Hunter x Hunter movie, The Last Mission. No offense to Zushi, but it's very unlikely that he's on the same level as Chrollo and Hisoka. Plus, those other Floor Masters in the movie appear to be very weak. As for the canon story, we don't know much about the rest of the Floor Masters, and we might never even get to meet them. Some think Silva Zoldyck could have been a former floor master himself, since every Zoldyck heir has to fight in Heaven's Arena as part of their training. Some even believe that Chairman Netero was one of the first floor masters, and there's also a theory of Wing being a former one, given the way he's training Zushi through Heaven's Arena as if he's molding him to become his successor. Benjamin, the first prince of Kakin, is the eldest son of Nasubi and his wife Queen Unma. Not only is he a prince, he's also the deputy military advisor of the Kakin Royal Army. As the eldest son, he's got solid political clout and control over the Royal Army, making him the top contender for the throne, and the biggest target in the war. His aggressiveness is shown when he was introduced wrestling a lion with his bare hands, and then brutally crushing its throat out of anger when his younger brother taunted him. His confidence borders on arrogance, and his siblings see him as the biggest threat. Once Benjamin learns about the guardian spirit beast from Kurapika's announcement, he quickly deploys his soldiers to act as bodyguards for the other princes, and to gather intel on their beasts to get an edge. Benjamin can also use Nen, and his ability Benjamin Baton is very useful. He can inherit the Nen abilities of his soldiers when they die, but there are some conditions. They must have graduated from the Kakin Royal Military Academy, be part of his private army, and have sworn loyalty to him. The ability shows up as 4 stars on his right palm, directly under his fingers. If one of his soldiers dies while using their Nen, he inherits their abilities and gets control of their power. He can even take it if the original user loses control of it. It's unclear if he can take abilities from all of his soldiers or just 4 of them, given the stars on his hand. But so far, he's inherited 3 abilities from his fallen soldiers. Air Blow from Vincent, who poisoned himself when he was restrained by Kurapika and Bill. Secret Window from Moose, who was killed by Prince Camilla, and Cold Sept from Shikaku, who met his demise at the hands of Prince Hulkenberg. His Nen ability aside, his Ken is also no joke, as it allowed him to tank multiple bullets without a single scratch when Camilla opens fire on him, while the same gun seriously injured one of his soldiers. Besides Ken, he can also use Ten, Ren, and Hatsu. Additionally, Benjamin's guardian spirit beast is still lurking in the background, and we haven't seen its full potential yet. Camilla is the second prince of the Kakin Empire, and the daughter of King Nasubi's second wife, Queen Doazul. On the surface, she seems charming and elegant, but just like her older brother Benjamin, she's especially arrogant and cold-hearted. She's also a big spender, obsessed with buying luxury, branded, and limited edition items. She's pretty self-absorbed, and doesn't really show respect to anyone except her father. She once ordered her own mother to kill her younger biological brother, showing how little restraint she really has. While Benjamin controls the Kakin military, Camilla has a different kind of support. She's backed by the have-nots, the lowest class of people in the Kakin Empire who aren't allowed to hold public office or join the military. She gained their loyalty by letting some of them join her private guard and giving them privileges, even building a special district on her property for them. Her plan for the Succession War is to use them to inflict Nen curses on her other siblings, once certain conditions are met, in hopes of taking them all out in one fell swoop. Camilla is also a strong Nen user, and her ability is tied to Postmortem Nen, that she uses in her powerful ability called Cat's Name, which only activates if she's killed. When that happens, a giant cat-like Nen beast appears behind her killer, squashes them, and drains their life force, completely destroying their body. The cat then transfers the energy to its glowing tail and pours it into Camilla's mouth, healing her and bringing her back to life. She used this Nen ability when she tried to assassinate Benjamin, but got shot by his soldier Moose. After she died, her cat took Moose out and brought her back to life. This ability makes her almost unkillable, but there's a catch. It only works if she dies first, so she can't stop herself from getting hurt unless someone actually tries to kill her. Benjamin figures this out and orders his men specifically not to kill her. Instead, one of his soldiers restrains her, breaks her arm, and throws her in jail, exposing the flaw in her seemingly unbeatable ability. Because of this, both Camilla and Benjamin end up standing trial before the Supreme Magistrate, Camilla for killing Moose, and Benjamin for possibly ordering her assassination. The Magistrate orders both of them to be confined to the VVIP area and put under surveillance. Meanwhile, Benjamin secretly uses Moose's Nen ability, Secret Window, on Camilla, so he can spy on her from a distance without her even knowing. The ability of her guardian spirit beast has yet to be shown, but it's said to be some kind of manipulation ability. Zhang Li is the third prince of the Kakin Empire, and the son of King Nasubi's third wife, Tang Zhao Li. Along with the royal family, a few of Kakin's mafia families are also in the mix in the Succession War, fighting each other to back their sponsors and push their own agendas. One of the big mafia groups in Kakin's underworld is the Zhiyu family, and they're affiliated with Zhang Li. While Benjamin and Camilla are focused on eliminating their other siblings to win, Zhang Li has a more grounded approach. He's somewhat of a pacifist and he doesn't want to kill, but if he has to, he won't hesitate. He can be both kind and cruel. He treats people with respect and courtesy, and makes it clear that he's not in the succession contest because he really wants to be. That said, he's not above joining forces with the mafia to get some extra muscle. Zhang Li believes that a true king should know how to use both the light and the dark sides of society. Unlike his older siblings, he doesn't seem to have any Nen abilities himself, but his guardian spirit beast could help in this area for him. It's a conjurer type beast that spits out a coin every day. It's theorized that whoever holds the coin gets certain abilities after meeting some conditions, and their power grows over time, indicated by the increasing number on the coin. Zhang Li thinks the coins will become a game changer once he's king, though right now they aren't very useful. He's the only one of the Kakin princes who's paid attention to how the last succession contest went down, and is following his father Nasubi's strategy, playing the long game. He's letting the others take themselves out while he plans ahead. His patient approach is the exact opposite of his more aggressive siblings Benjamin and Camilla, who are itching to make the first move. Saradnich is the fourth prince of the Kakin Empire, and the younger son of his father's first wife, Unma. He used to be tied to the Heoli family, one of Kakin's biggest mafia groups headed by Morena Prudhoe, but he cut them off after Morena tried to make a move against him. Despite his calm smile and polite behavior, Saradnich is a total sociopath. He takes pleasure in gruesome killings, especially targeting young women, and has a twisted hobby of collecting human body parts, including several pairs of the Kurta clan's Scarlet Eyes. Being in possession of the remaining Scarlet Eyes, he's the main reason why Kurapika decided to join the Zodiacs and enlist as a bodyguard for a Kakin prince, so he could get close to the fourth prince. Saradnich is actually thrilled by the chance of killing his siblings, whom he sees as nothing more than garbage, though he gets along pretty well with 9th Prince Hawkenberg. While aboard the Black Whale 1, he got interested in Nen after hearing Kurapika mention the Guardian Spirit Beasts. He started training under his bodyguard Theta, who was stunned at how quickly he picked it up, realizing he's a natural Nen genius. When he accused Theta of lying about the time it takes to learn Nen basics, his creepy-looking Nen beast stepped in, watching her closely and scratching her cheek as a warning. His Spirit Beast's full abilities aren't very clear yet, but one thing is for sure, it can tell when someone's lying. Whenever Saradnich asks a question, the beast moves in close to the person and judges their response. If it thinks they're telling the truth, it backs off, but if it senses a lie, it leaves a cut on them. If they lie again, the cut turns into a nasty wound. What happens on the third lie is still a mystery. Like other Guardian Spirit Beasts, Saradnich's beast can move through walls and neutralize incoming threats. The beast disappears when Saradnich is in Zetsu, and isn't providing aura. But with his insane amount of aura, the beast reappears the moment he relaxes his Zetsu. After a short time of learning Nen, Saradnich develops his own ability called Parallel Future, which is a specialist ability. When he closes his eyes and activates Zetsu, he gets a vision of the next 10 seconds. It's like time freezes for a moment while he gets this glimpse into the future. If he keeps his eyes closed after the 10 seconds, time resumes as normal, but he continues seeing 10 seconds ahead in a kind of split reality, one where he sees the future and the present side by side. During his training, he foresaw Theta trying to shoot him in the head, allowing him to dodge the shot and surprise her. With this new ability, he's confident he can master Zetsu and use it to dominate the succession contest, and eventually the entire world. Tubeppa is the 5th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the daughter of King Nasubi's second wife, Queen Duazul. She's a scientist with a no-nonsense personality, and likes to carefully analyze her siblings' strengths and weaknesses to win the throne. She has no love for her older siblings, Benjamin, Camilla, and Zhang Li, and is planning to get rid of them since she can't stand their qualities. She has her own vision for the kingdom, and once she takes the throne, she plans to spare her younger siblings. When Kurapika announces the existence of Nen beasts, Tubeppa takes it as a sign that he's aiming for a truce and gets curious about him. Later, she agrees to send 2 of her bodyguards to learn Nen from Kurapika, telling them to try and form an alliance with him within 2 weeks, even though Kurapika is working for Prince Wobble. Tubeppa's guardian spirit beast is a transmuter type, with a collaborative ability that needs a research partner to work, which might explain why she's eager to team up with Kurapika. Her beast can synthesize all sorts of drugs and chemicals inside of its body with various effects. Since her beast is cautious, just like her, it avoids showing up around Benjamin's soldiers, who Tubeppa suspects are behind her siblings' deaths. On the 10th day of the voyage, Kurapika finally agrees to work with Tubeppa through her bodyguard Long He. Tyson is the 6th prince of Kakin, and the older daughter of King Nasubi's 4th wife Katrono. Unlike most of the other princes, she's completely against the idea of a death match and always preaches love and peace. Even though the succession contest is pretty brutal, she's super confident she can win it without resorting to violence. She's a laid-back person who loves being around attractive men, and she actually picked her bodyguards based on how handsome they were. She hires Uzanavi as one of her bodyguards for the trip to the Dark Continent, and shortly after they set off, she gives him and the other guards copies of her book, titled The Book of Tyson. She's convinced it could bring about world peace. Tyson is head over heels for her bodyguards and is super possessive, so much so that she refuses to let the Hunter Association screen them, and doesn't send any of them to learn Nen from Kurapika. She even threw one of them a surprise birthday party, since they wouldn't get to celebrate it before his contract ended. While Tyson doesn't know how to use Nen yet, she has her guardian spirit beast to help her. The heart-shaped creature floats above her, and creates little eyewogs that attach to anyone who's read her book. The eyewogs collect aura, and give happiness in return, and how happy they get depends on how much of the book they've read. But if anyone breaks the one big rule of her teachings, they'll get punished. All of her bodyguards except Uzunavi seem to have been influenced by the book, changing to fit her ideal descriptions. Izunami figures out that Tyson's book is tied to her spirit beast's power, and he suggests giving a copy to the king, hoping it might turn him into a peace-loving guy and end the war. Izunami also theorizes that all the aura being collected by the heart-shaped spirit beast can be used for some kind of spirit bomb attack like from Dragon Ball Z, which is how he described it verbatim. Luzurus is the 7th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the son of King Nasubi's second wife, Duazul. He's affiliated with the Cha'ar family, one of the big 3 mafia families in the empire, headed by Brocco Lee. We don't know too much about Luzurus' personality, but it seems like he's not as sharp as the other siblings, as seen when he sent his soldiers to take the hunter exam with assassination in mind, without realizing there could be a lie detector test. Of course the lie detectors caught their intentions, and they all failed. Since his guards couldn't pass the hunter exam, he ended up posting one of the anonymous listings on Kakin's website for bodyguards. Basho applies, and agrees to protect him during the Dark Continent trip. Luzurus seems pretty nonchalant and level-headed on the surface. That being said, he still wants to win. After talking with his guards, he finds out it takes almost a year to even see Nen, and he sticks to his original plan of targeting his older half-sister Tubeppa. He also seems to have a thoughtful side. When he learns about Basho's Clean Leaf, a drug made from an undisclosed plant that can be used recreationally or therapeutically, he wonders if it can be used to help rehabilitate drug addicts. As for his guardian spirit beast, we haven't seen its full power yet, but it's said to be a conjurer type that employs a kind of pseudo-coercive manipulation. It can set traps by materializing whatever the target desires as bait. Once the target satisfies their desire, the trap is triggered, and the ability kicks in. Seeing as how spirit beasts are reflections of their princes, this could hint at the possibility that Luzurus is simply playing dumb and letting his siblings underestimate him, waiting for the right moment to show his true colors. Saleh Saleh is the 8th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the only child of King Nasubi's 5th wife, Swinko Swinko. He's a total womanizer, and is always surrounded by attractive young women who are barely dressed. He's all about partying and indulgence. When we first see him on the Black Whale 1, he's throwing a huge party in his room, and seems to ignore the succession war completely. He's barely ever dressed himself, lounging around with tons of food and drinks scattered everywhere, while his mother and guards simply watch. His mother eventually confronts him, trying to get him to take the war seriously, but he just brushes it off, and promises he'll quote, change the world, at the banquet by performing a rap number. Meanwhile, Benjamin's soldier Rihan is secretly keeping an eye on Saleh Saleh's guardian spirit beast. His Nen beast is a manipulator type and releases white smoke from its mouth. The smoke can sway anyone who inhales it to be more loyal to Saleh Saleh. How much smoke it releases depends on how stressed he is, but it usually covers about a 7-meter radius. After someone breathes in enough smoke, a little clone of the Nen beast appears above their head and spreads even more smoke, turning that person into a walking infected carrier who can make others fall under Saleh Saleh's influence too. The more somebody already likes Saleh Saleh, the faster they get affected. People who are loyal to him will be swayed in about 8 hours, while those who don't care about him take around 70 hours. Rihan realizes that if left unchecked, Saleh Saleh's power could turn the Kakin Empire into an unstoppable dictatorship. Knowing this, he swaps with Yusoshi, who ends up assassinating Saleh Saleh. His death is kept a secret from the public, and his absence from the banquet is explained away as him being too sick to perform. Hawkenberg is the 9th prince of Kakin, and the son of King Nasubi's second wife, Duazul. He doesn't get along with his mother or biological sisters, Camilla and Tubepa, and the only person he gets along with in the family is with his half-brother Saradnich. Unlike Saradnich though, Hawkenberg is a pacifist. He wants no part in the bloodshed of this war, and refuses to win the throne by killing his siblings. His guardian spirit beast marks his loyal subordinates, including himself, with a pinion on their hands. This pinion secretly awakens their Nen, and when they gather together, their combined aura is so powerful it causes a rumbling. Hawkenberg sends 2 of his bodyguards to learn Nen from Kurapika, hoping to uncover more about his Nen beast abilities. When one of his half-siblings dies, it hits him hard. He ends up confronting his father, pointing a gun at him and demanding he stop the contest. But Nasubi's Nen beast steps in and stops the bullet mid-air. Realizing he failed, Hawkenberg tries to shoot himself, but his guardian spirit beast saves him by catching the bullet. His father convinces him that in order to create the change that he wants, he needs to seize power by winning the Succession War. Hawkenberg reluctantly agrees, realizing it's the only way forward. This new resolve leads him to awakening his Nen ability, Possession Arrow. With it, he can channel the aura of his loyal subordinates to create an impenetrable armor, and a powerful arrow that can pierce any defense. He transmutes his aura into a bow, and fires the arrow with a guaranteed hit. The catch is, if the arrow somehow misses, he will die. When the arrow strikes the target, the soul of one of his subordinates transfers into the target's body, leaving the subordinate in a coma until the target dies, at which point their soul returns. Hawkenberg is still figuring out the full extent of his new power, but he's becoming more determined to master it, and slowly becoming one of the bigger threats in the war. Kacho is the 10th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the older twin sister of Fugetsu. She's the daughter of King Nasubi's 6th wife, Seiko, and one of the 6 princes who put up anonymous listings for bodyguards. Melody applies to her listing and gets hired to protect her on the voyage. At first, Kacho comes off as a spoiled, nasty prince who even picks her bodyguards based on their looks, but unlike Tyson, she chooses the ugly ones. Even though she's one of the younger princes, she seems pretty ruthless. She plans to team up with Fugetsu to kill off their siblings during the Succession War, and promises Fugetsu that when she's king, she'll ask her father to spare her. But Kacho's bratty attitude is all an act. The truth is, she's just pretending to be cold and difficult so her bodyguards will hate her. That way, if they ever have to choose between saving her or Fugetsu, they'll pick Fugetsu. She really cares about her sister, and hates being forced into this deadly competition with her own family. Kacho eventually confides in Melody using a high-frequency device to communicate with her in Morse code. She reveals her plan to escape the ship with Fugetsu during the banquet, but in order to do that, she'll need Melody's help, along with another guard, Kini. The plan is for Melody to entrance everyone with her flute performance, while Kini helps the twins sneak onto a lifeboat. The escape starts off well, and they make it onto the lifeboat, but as they approach the exit, Kacho feels something is terribly wrong. Ghostly hands suddenly appear, and she realizes that trying to escape the war means certain death. She urges Fugetsu to use her magic door ability to return to the ship. Fugetsu makes it back through the tunnel, but Kacho is left behind, and tragically dies. However, Kacho's guardian spirit beast finally activates its ability, which takes Kacho's form. This replica of Kacho opens the door and reunites with Fugetsu, who has no idea that her real sister died on the boat. After the failed escape and Kini's suicide, Kacho in her Nen form and Melody are interrogated at the Justice Bureau. During this, Kacho figures out that her guardian spirit beast, called Without You, is formless and only activates when she dies. The beast takes on her appearance and personality, staying with the surviving twin to protect her until she also dies. The copy looks and acts exactly like the original, and no one, not even Fugetsu, can tell the difference. Fugetsu is the 11th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the daughter of Nasubi's 6th wife, Seiko. She's the younger twin sister of Kacho. Unlike Kacho, Fugetsu is pretty timid, and struggles to switch from her more innocent personality to a serious one when it comes to the deadly Succession War. She's super attached to Kacho, and the bond between the two sisters runs deep. As kids, they used to play together at a playground called Magic Worm. One of their favorite games was pretending to travel the world, and Kacho always let Fugetsu choose where they'd go next. This memory links to Fugetsu's guardian spirit beast, which gives her a teleportation ability that creates a small door resembling the entrance to Magic Worm, which she calls the outgoing door. By crawling through the tunnel behind the door, she can teleport to another location and come out a hatch-like opening. Once Fugetsu closes the door, it becomes undetectable, but she can still go through it as long as she stays in the tunnel. However, if she leaves the tunnel, the return door appears. but only Kacho can open it. This makes her power a symbiotic type ability. The door shows up once per night, and using it leaves Fugetsu exhausted. After their failed attempt to escape, Fugetsu doesn't realize that Kacho died on the boat. Since Kacho's death, Fugetsu's ability has gotten stronger. She no longer needs Kacho to open the return door, and she's not limited to using her power only once a day anymore. With this power-up, she becomes restless and very eager to use her ability to protect Kacho and find a way to escape again. Kacho becomes extremely worried and meets with Melody, who is confined at the Justice Bureau, to tell her about Fugetsu's condition. Melody arranges for Fugetsu to be interrogated, just so they can pass each other in the hallway. When Melody walks by Fugetsu, she's completely shocked to sense a dark presence around her, with buzzing insects and multiple dark spirits floating behind her. She realizes that Fugetsu's aura is as weak as if she was in Zetsu, and the chaotic rhythm of her heartbeat is attracting evil spirits. Momose is the 12th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the only daughter of King Nasubi's 7th wife, Savanti. On the surface, Momose comes off as a calm, sweet girl who enjoys knitting in her free time. On the first day of the trip, the guardian spirit beasts of all the Kakin princes awaken, and some, including Momose's, appear in Prince Woble's room without the princes realizing. Although parasitic in nature, these beasts take after their host's personality. While many of the other prince's beasts seemed way more cruel, none of them directly attacked Woble's bodyguards, except for Momose's, hinting that she might not be as innocent as she seemed. Momose's Nen Beast is a manipulator type, capable of phasing through walls, smart enough to ask questions, and interpret nonverbal answers, like nodding or pointing. Its main tactic is to ask its target if they're free. If the person says no, a tiny version of the beast appears on their shoulder, nagging them until they say yes. Once they agree, the beast implants a small cartoonish-like spider in their ear, and it takes control of them. Momose feels tired after her beast takes over someone, even though she doesn't fully know what it does. Despite her mother favoring her younger brother Miriam over her, Momose doesn't seem to mind. When Queen Savanti orders 9 of Momose's guards to be transferred to Miriam, reducing Momose's protection to just 6 guards, she agrees without protest. Beneath her obedient attitude though, she seems to actually look down on her mother and Miriam, feeling sorry for them because they don't have what it takes to become king. Later, one of Momose's remaining guards sneaks into her room while she's sleeping and strangles her to death. Her body is later placed in a coffin, surrounded by other coffins with Nen inscriptions. King Nasubi mentions that these coffins will be part of the foundation of the Tree of Kakin. Miriam is the 13th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the younger of Queen Savanti's 2 kids. Miriam is really attached to his pet hamster, and even takes it with him to formal events. He's a fan of video games too, and is often seen with his mother, who clearly favors him over his older sister Momose. When Savanti reassigns Momose's bodyguards to Miriam, he's seen clinging to his mother as she explains that he's scared, which is why she wants to protect him, while saying that Momose can handle herself. Hanzo is one of the guards transferred to Miriam, where he reunites with Bisky, who had been previously hired as one of Miriam's bodyguards, and to whom the young prince has grown really attached to. Miriam's guardian spirit beast looks like a dragon, but its full abilities aren't clear yet. Both Bisky and Hanzo notice that it keeps getting bigger over time. The beast's appearance also changes based on Miriam's emotions. After Momose's death, it became massive and covered in spikes. His guards theorize that Miriam's Nen Beast is behind the mysterious barrier surrounding their room. People can leave and make calls from the room, but anyone trying to enter from the outside is transported to an alternate empty room. If someone steps out of the real room, they won't be able to see or hear anything that's going on inside, even if the door is open. But from inside the room, everything seems normal. This all suggests that Miriam's Nen Beast might use either emission or conjuration. Woble is the 14th prince of the Kakin Empire, and the daughter of Queen Oito, Nasubi's 8th wife. She's the youngest of the 14 siblings, and since she's just a baby, she doesn't really have much of a personality yet, and is usually asleep. Before the voyage, Oito tries to hire bodyguards to protect Woble, in preparation for the upcoming war. Kurapika ends up getting picked, and Oito even lets him hold the baby to show her trust in him. Not long into the trip, they find Woody and 4 of Woble's bodyguards dead, which freaks out Oito and Kurapika, since that meant there was a traitor among them. Kurapika then learns about the Seed Urn ceremony and the Guardian Spirit Beasts, and starts thinking that Woble's Spirit Beast might have sensed hostility from Woody, who had killed the other guards, and attacked him based on his killing intent towards Woble. Even though the baby is usually sleeping, she seems to have some kind of instinct for danger. When Vincent, one of Prince Benjamin's soldiers, shows up for guard duty, she suddenly starts crying. Vincent barges into the room after killing one of Woble's maids, and threatens to shoot them. Kurapika quickly asks Obito to trust him as he activates Emperor Time and comes up with a plan to transfer Sayard's Nen ability to her. This way, he can use Stealth Dolphin to steal Vincent's aura. Obito is hesitant, but when Wobble suddenly stops crying and reaches out to Kurapika like she's putting her trust in him, Obito decides to do the same. As for Wobble's guardian spirit beast, no one knows what it looks like or what its abilities are, but there's a theory that it might not have a physical form, like Kacho's, and could be more of an enhancement type ability that helps Wobble sense who's trustworthy and who's a threat.